Wei Tianci had finally run out of patience with Dragon Emperor returns to the city. He mocked its hero for guarding his virginity for 10,000 years just to cultivate a ridiculous technique, declared the abandoned novel pure poison, and posted 2 savage reviews. Then his vision went black. A voice greeted him as its host and welcomed him to the very novel he had insulted. When Wei opened his eyes, the room was magnificent and completely unfamiliar. Transmigration and systems were standard WebNovel tricks to him. Recognizing the trope did not make living through it any less numbing. System named him Wei Tianci, the story's #1 villain. His way home was worse. He had to personally push the original protagonist all the way to a perfect ending. Only then could he return to reality and claim the promised rewards. The novel's disposable obstacle had become its unwilling director. Hero he had to serve was Yi Fan. After his parents were murdered, Yi Fan fled overseas with vengeance in his heart and found the extreme Yang divine art. Through relentless training, he shook the international mercenary world, gathered followers, and built the fearsome Dragon Emperor Palace. Yi Fan's supreme technique had an absurd lock. Its final chapter required 9 women of Huogyu descent with Purian constitutions, followed by dual cultivation with all 9. That condition sent him back to Shanghai, where he hid his identity inside Mayu's Ankeng group while pursuing clues about his family's enemies. He knew his opening cue. At Ankeng Group's new drug conference, he was supposed to confess to CEO and Mayu before every camera and microphone. She would resist. Yi Fan, hiding in plain sight as her security guard, would step forward, beat the arrogant young master, call the police, and win her admiration. Enough thinking. Wei pulled on shorts and slippers, grabbed the keys to his Lamborghini, and raced toward Ankeng Group. Convention demanded a handsome suit, a fashionable hairstyle, and a bouquet of roses. Since this confession was designed to accomplish nothing, he saw no reason to waste effort looking sincere. Halfway there, a red light stopped him beside a strip of roadside greenery. Wei reached out, plucked a single stalk of foxtail grass, and promoted it to a substitute rose. The ridiculous little plant suited his plan perfectly, just enough ceremony to complete the confession, with none of a real suitor's investment. The moment the Lamborghini entered Ankeng Group's gates, the system chimed. The plot was active and unfolding. His reward was an ancient martial constitution called returning the opponent's way upon themselves. Heat surged through Wei's body, leaving him instantly energized. For the first time since waking, he looked genuinely pleased. Name reminded Wei of the Gusu Murong family's legendary technique from demigods and semidevils. Perhaps this constitution could return every attack automatically. He did not know that for certain, but if his guess was right, it would save considerable trouble. Armed with that possibility, he headed inside. Inside, Wei finally saw Mayu, Ankeng Group's CEO and the story's #1 female lead. She stood at the formal press event in a fitted white suit, diamond earrings catching the light beneath chin-length hair. Her face was delicate and petite. This composed executive was the woman his performance had to provoke. Wei loudly announced his first reason for celebrating. Under President N's leadership, he said, Ankeng Group had developed version 2 of its antihypertensive drug, and the market would surely rush to buy it. The reporters nodded. That product was why they had gathered. And Mayu herself remained coldly unimpressed by a playboy's admiration. Before Mayu could ask about his second reason, Wei's real opinion sounded inside her head. Impressed? Not remotely. If she had built the company from nothing, he might respect her. Instead, he thought her family had financed everything and called her self-righteous. His smiling public praise and private contempt existed side by side. Mayu straightened sharply. Her eyes widened at Wei, shock mixing with anger as his final judgment, self-righteous woman, rang through her mind. This had not been an auditory hallucination. She could truly hear Wei Tianci's inner voice. He remained oblivious, still playing his assigned villain while the first heroine's understanding of him shattered. Mayu's cold glare only delighted Wei Tianci. To him, it proved the villain and heroine were naturally destined to clash. He had no idea she was furious about his leaked contempt. Right on cue, an eager reporter asked for his second joyous occasion. Wei laughed and announced that he intended to propose to President N and bring her into the great, wealthy Wei family. Then his expression softened into practiced devotion. From the day they met, he declared, the rest of his life belonged only to her. He begged for one chance to love her forever. The flick of his wrist, Wei produced not a jewel but a ring woven from foxtail grass. He praised the plant for its resilience, refusal to surrender, and fierce vitality. That, he claimed, was the perfect image of his unyielding love. Smiling, he held the humble ring out and asked him to accept it. Was ready to refuse the smooth-talking playboy when his real voice reached her again. To Wei, this visit was merely going through the motions. Once finished, he planned to party with women he considered more accommodating. He even imagined that a cold president like him would be boring in bed. Instead of giving Wei the rejection he expected and accepted the grass ring and wore it, his thoughts recoiled. Was she starved for love? Was her brain underdeveloped, her face flushed with fury? Her IQ was 170, scores of young masters pursued her, and she had kept herself pure for more than 20 years. And immediately pulled the ring from her finger. Wei had given it to show her face, she said, and she had accepted to return that courtesy. Now she was returning it to end the episode. The crowd relaxed into a simple explanation. President and had only observed public and business etiquette. Wei arranged his face into the sorrow of a rejected young boy, but inside he nearly sagged with relief. If An had truly accepted him, he would have been finished at the start. Yet rejection alone was not enough. Where was Yi Fan? The hero still needed to drive him away and win An's admiration. Wei worried that An was unstable enough to latch onto him again. Listening, she clenched her fists. Did he see her as some ravenous beast? She wanted to bite someone. Then a violent bang cut through the hall. The venue doors flew open, and security guard Yi Fan swaggered inside with imposing confidence. At last, Wei thought, the male lead had arrived to restore the proper plot. Yi Fan advanced as though entering a battlefield and condemned Wei's disrespect toward President An. Inside An's mind, however, Wei's anticipation came first. He already knew the grand heroic declaration Yi Fan was about to deliver. Yi Fan raised his voice and declared that, for President An, he would make an enemy of the whole world. It was exactly the line Wei had anticipated. Turbulent waves surged through An. Hearing another person's thoughts might be supernatural, but predicting someone else's words, perfectly and in advance, was something else entirely. Until now, An had told herself the inner voice might be a rare supernatural event, perhaps gone after one night's sleep. That comfort vanished. Even stories about rebirth did not grant perfect knowledge of another person's next sentence. Cold sweat formed on her forehead as she studied Wei with doubt and apprehension. And Wei's thoughts revealed something worse. Yi Fan, he said, had cunningly selected An as his first cauldron woman. A glamorous, aloof president would naturally attract arrogant suitors, while a security guard could repeatedly use them as a stage for heroic rescues. An's supposed savior had come here with a design on her. Wei's thoughts carried the nightmare further, and Mayu was supposedly destined to accumulate affection for Yi Fan and become his head wife. Yet the abandoned novel had ended before Yi gathered all 9 Purian women and unlocked the final chapter of his extreme Yang divine art. Her heart raced. The word cauldron sounded vile, becoming a security guard's head wife sounded absurd, and even that promised ending was a cliché the unfinished book never reached. More importantly, he had not arrived at Ankang Group by chance. He had chosen her. He strode to An's side and delivered his grand assurance. While he was present, nobody could hurt her. Instead of gratitude, An gave him an annoyed glance. Nobody had been hurting her, she said. Why was he the one creating trouble? Both men froze. He had known and despised Wei, so the press conference seemed like a perfect stage. He had hidden outside from the moment Wei arrived, waiting for one cry of anger before charging in. When that cry never came, he entered anyway, certain driving Wei off would win admiration. Wei was even more anxious. He had arrived exactly as the story required, but An refused to cooperate. Desperate to move beyond the interruption and preserve some opening for conflict, he guided the moment back toward the scheduled photographs, and regarded him skeptically, then agreed. Wei took the left side of the podium and the right, both facing the staff cameras below. Watching them pose, Yi relaxed into a smug conclusion. His intervention had worked. Wei must be retreating in the face of a superior hero. And Wei's hidden hand struck An's backside. Her body stiffened and her expression shifted. The bastard had done it under the press cameras. One clear photograph could become a headline. Before she could respond, Wei glanced over his shoulder, winked at Yi, and silently mouthed, "Bouncy." His eyes blazed. Shouting that Wei had touched his woman, he launched forward with a killing threat and drove a fist toward Wei's back. Wei welcomed it. At last, he could beat the rich villain, display fearless loyalty, and become the sort of hero no woman could resist. But An heard every triumphant thought. Wei wanted this attack. He was offering himself up so he could look brave, loyal, and irresistible. She turned toward Wei with an expression stranger than ordinary outrage. Shock and suspicion now outweighed both shame and anger. His fist slammed into Wei's back at lightning speed. Wei had prepared to fly across the stage, but nothing happened. He felt no pain and barely any impact. Yi, meanwhile, felt as though he had punched an iron plate. A violent countershock tore back through his arm. A returning force drove blood into Yi's throat. He nearly spat it out, then forced it down before the crowd could see. His face flushed crimson as he struggled to steady his breathing. One confident punch had left the supposed Dragon Emperor questioning his own strength. Wei looked at him almost sympathetically. For Yi, the collision must have felt like a speeding car meeting a concrete wall. Returning the opponent's Wei upon themselves had not merely made Wei durable, it had sent the attack back. The reward worked far better than he wanted. And Wei remembered the real disaster. He was supposed to defeat him, report the disturbance, and summon a policewoman who would arrest Wei before an applauding crowd. Her admiration for the fearless security guard would begin their romance. But Yi had failed, and now had no face to call for help. Still standing in the Ankang Group venue, Wei Tianci stared at An Mayu in mounting panic. Yifan's punch had failed, so no one would call the police. Without an arrest, the promised policewoman could neither enter the story nor meet its supposed hero. His thoughts practically begged him to let Yi attack again or summon help. Wei even promised to collapse and surrender if he landed one hit, but heard the bargain clearly. Whatever this world demanded, she was still in Mayu. She would decide her own fate. Saving the damsel in distress, she refused. And took a breath, looked past Wei and addressed Yi with cool authority. He was to apologize to Mr. Wei Tianci. He could only stare at her. Wei was equally stunned. This was not another opening for the hero, it was the exact opposite. Reminded Yi that he was only a security guard. Whether someone confessed to her was her affair, not his. When he protested that Wei's hidden hand had been aimed at her backside, she cut off the vulgar accusation. Apologize now, or pack his belongings and leave Ankeng Group. Yi's face turned livid. In his mind and was already his woman, so her harshness felt like an intolerable humiliation. His chest heaved, but he forced himself to endure. Once his plans succeeded, he thought, there would be time to make her kneel and apologize. With his job and public image trapped between Anne's order and the watching press, he turned toward Wei and apologized. The submission was forced, not sincere. Yet it still destroyed the role Wei needed him to play. The triumphant hero had just been disciplined like an overreaching employee. Wei felt terrible. The proper sequence was simple. He should defeat him, Wei should be detained for causing trouble, and everyone should be satisfied. Instead, the entire venue was judging the supposed hero. Public opinion had turned backward, and Wei could do nothing but watch it drift farther off course. He refused to let the matter end, and was a business elite, he argued, and she had always despised playboy heirs who used family power to do evil. That was why he had stepped forward. What he could not understand was why she now treated Wei Tianci differently. And answered with the very point she had heard in Wei's thoughts. What did you mean by relying on family background? Without her own family background, what did he imagine she would be? The question landed cleanly. He stood stunned, unable to produce a reply. Cornered in argument, he looked at Wei with naked hatred. He had only one answer left. They would wait and see. Before Wei could respond, the venue erupted. To everyone listening, an Ankang security guard had just threatened the Wei family's top young master in public. Voices condemned the arrogant guard for threatening someone so far above his station. If anything happened to young Master Wei, they warned, you would be lucky to escape the harshest consequences. One attendee eagerly opened TikTok, ready to turn any fresh attack into a viral video. He was shocked by the crowd's warning. Then he looked at him with sudden emotion and rewrote the confrontation in his favor. Of course, he had misunderstood her. She had demanded the apology not to reject him, but to protect him from the power behind Wei Tianci. That interpretation only made Wei feel worse. He had not defeated him. No police had arrived, and had refused the rescue. The audience had turned hostile toward Yi, and even Yi now believed he had been secretly protected. Every development was opposite to the story Wei was responsible for advancing. And tried to expose what she had been hearing. Her mouth opened, but no sound emerged. Shock replaced her composure. The inner voices could reach her, yet she could not make them public. Whatever force had revealed the plot to her had also sealed that knowledge inside her. Agitated and needing time to recover, and abandoned any attempt to explain. She caught her female assistant's eye and signaled for her to take over the press conference. Then, beneath every watching gaze, and left the venue without looking back. Then gone, the entire performance lost its center. Wei no longer had a female lead to provoke, and Yi no longer had anyone to rescue. Under the assistant's takeover and the crowd's lingering attention, both men stepped down from the stage. As Wei left, young women at the venue kept chattering. Some would have accepted him immediately. A perfect, wealthy man was difficult to find. Whatever his motives, they agreed he was 10,000 times better than Yifan. He heard every word. His face went black and his fists clenched tight. Yifan heard the crowd praise Wei and forced his fury down. Bickering with ordinary people would only diminish the Dragon Emperor. Across the venue, Wei cast everyone a speechless glance of his own. The victor of the public confrontation looked anything but relieved. Wei's legs felt heavy because only half of today's plot had happened. The heroic policewoman had never appeared. He had not been hauled to the station, and she had not met Yifan. Too many required beats were missing for him to trust this apparent victory. Wei asked the system whether leaving Ankang Group would bring down lightning or some final destination-style accident. The answer was coldly precise. A plot cycle lasted 24 hours. Even without further progress, he would remain safe until that cycle expired. The rule was still frighteningly strict, but Wei had been exhausted enough for one day. He decided to enjoy the time he had and find somewhere to relax. Then he strode out, climbed into his Lamborghini, and sped away from Ankang Group. As a playboy devoted to wine and song, Wei knew every newly opened entertainment spot in the city. Navigation led him straight to Huangting Spa Massage Club. He parked, put his hands in his pockets, and entered a magnificent lobby drenched in gold. 2 rows of young women in black silk, stockings, and office-style uniforms bowed together. Their smiling welcome and the pleasant fragrance finally gave Wei the atmosphere he wanted. A receptionist stepped forward and guided him through the shoe-changing area toward a private room. In room 9, Wei tossed his numbered wristband onto the nightstand and stretched out on the massage bed. When the receptionist recited the club's teas, he chose mineral water. When she began the next familiar question, he answered before she could finish. Wei had no regular masseuse, so he told her to arrange whoever was available. He knew the routine by heart. Ordinary customers waited for the rotation, while a requested worker could cut the line and earn a higher commission. On his first visit, he preferred to let chance decide. The receptionist placed a brand new set of light disposable clothes beside Wei, explaining that they would make the massage more comfortable. She left to arrange a masseuse. Wei sprang upright with a carp kip-up, changed quickly, and leaned against the headboard to wait. Knock sounded. A gentle female voice asked permission to enter, and Wei answered with a grunt. The door opened on Xiao Dai, a pretty cute young masseuse in light work clothes. She took her place at the head of the bed and began the legitimate service. During the massage, Xiao Dai pressed Wei's abdomen and his powerful muscles rebounded immediately. She giggled that it was up. Inside the room, the meaning was perfectly innocent. Outside the window, stripped of every bit of context, those two words sounded like evidence of something entirely different. He had followed Wei from the venue, hunting for a chance to teach him a lesson. Now he believed chance had handed him a scandal. If Wei were caught soliciting prostitutes, his reputation would collapse, and Mayu would never look at him the same way again. Delighted, Yi dropped down, pulled out his phone, and dialed 110. Captain Li Sha received the report that a man and woman in Huangting's room 9 were conducting an illegal transaction in broad daylight. Furious at the brazenness of it, she mobilized her officers at once and drove the police car toward the massage club at high speed. He knew nothing about the report, the police response, or the way his missing storyline had just repaired itself. He was still inside the massage room when the system chimed. Plot completion had reached 60%, above the passing line. His reward was the bronze skin and iron bones physique. System reward took hold at maximum level. A warm current flooded Wei Tianci from head to toe, hardening his body until a satisfied sound escaped him. Yet his comfort gave way to suspicion. He had done nothing, so how had the plot advanced by itself? Wei's phone rang, and Xiao Dai passed it over. The caller was Ning Xingriwo, a woman whose beauty, figure, family, and intelligence could rival Mayu's. More importantly, Ning was Wei's fiancée, and the princess of a family powerful enough to stand beside his own. Wei's parents had tired of watching him chase Mayu, so they matched him with Ning. Both families welcomed the alliance and created Tianxing Pharmaceutical Group for them to manage together, each holding half the shares. The elders hoped proximity would grow into love. For Ning, it already had. Wei Ning was tragic. In the original story, Yifan killed him, and her love curdled into vengeance. She became the book's #1 female villain, a ruthless queen who fought Yifan alone, endured devastating reversals, lost her fortune, and repeatedly escaped death, all for the man who never returned her feelings. Xiao Dai asked Wei to turn over so she could step on his back. Hearing a young woman's voice, Ning forced a bitter smile and wondered whether he had finally changed his ways. Wei casually explained that he was at Huangting for a massage. Ning claimed she was only checking, and quietly insisted that loving him was her choice alone. Xiao Dai stepped down and exclaimed that Wei was unbelievably hard. His back did not yield at all, pressing it was like stepping on an iron plate. Wei finally understood what bronze skin and iron bones had done. On the phone, Ning's heart lurched. Losing to Mayu was painful enough. Was she now losing to strangers too? Massage room door flew inward with a bang. Captain Li Sha charged through first, tall, agile, and fiercely authoritative with her officers behind her. She ordered everyone to freeze. Xiao Dai jumped from the bed in panic and pleaded that nothing improper had happened. This was only a legitimate back massage. Yifan rushed in behind the police and shouted Xiao Dai down. What had she meant when she said something was up? And what about calling Wei so hard? The officers had heard both remarks outside the door, Yi insisted, so the pair could not explain them away now. Wei did not fight the accusation. He admitted solicitation and practically invited Li Sha to take him away. In his mind, the original plot had finally aligned. He would be removed while Yi, the helpful reporter, would earn the heroic police captain's attention. For Wei, a humiliating arrest was a price worth paying. Li Sha had been ready to scold Wei and Xiao Dai. Then Wei's inner voice reached her. According to those thoughts, the solicitation was staged. Yi had reported his own friend's performance, and the entire farce existed to make her admire Yi and become entangled with him. Li's heroic face went livid. He turned back to Xiao Dai and demanded the literal meaning of it stood up. Trembling, Xiao Dai explained that she meant Wei's abdominal muscles. Whenever she pressed them down, they rebounded immediately and pushed her hand back up. The embarrassing phrase had described an impossible physique, not an illegal service. He stared between Xiao Dai and Wei, still suspicious. Then she stepped up to the massage bed and gave Wei a blunt order, take off his clothes. Wei complied without enthusiasm. If she wanted proof that the bizarre remarks were about his body, she intended to verify it herself. Outwardly, Wei cooperated. Inwardly, he complained that Li Sha was doing everything wrong. She should be interacting with Yi Fan and deepening their relationship, not coming after him. He had already confessed. Why would she not simply take him away? Li heard every thought. Her complexion darkened from green to black. Li Sha's patience snapped. She struck Wei Tianci's exposed abdomen with her palm and met a solid thud. Her hand bounced away at once. Wei had not even tensed visibly. Beneath her stare, his well-defined muscles looked perfectly normal. Li glanced at Xiao Dai and awkwardly asked what exactly was so hard. Blushing at her own wording, she followed the masseuse's timid finger toward Wei's back. One cautious touch erased the last doubt. Xiao Dai had told the truth. It felt harder than iron. Wei smiled and urged the officer to take him away. 7 days of detention or a 5,000 fine, he would accept either. Inwardly, though, he warned that if this troublesome woman kept pushing him, he might touch her back in return. Li heard him. Her hand trembled. Yi Fan seized on Wei's words as a confession. He called Xiao Dai a frightened technician inventing excuses, demanded Wei's arrest, and went further. The police should expose one of Shanghai's 4 young masters on Weibo and Daoyan. To Yi, public ruin was the proper ending. Under every eye in the room, Li adjusted her police cap and gave a crisp order. Her target was not Wei. She ordered the man who had filed a false report, Yi Fan, taken back for investigation. The officers froze for one beat, then drew their handcuffs and surrounded him. He protested that Li had made a mistake. He was only a concerned citizen. Wei was the man she should arrest. The reversal cut deeper because Yi had fallen for Li at first sight. Instead of beginning as the righteous hero in her eyes, he was meeting her across a pair of handcuffs. Wei could not reconcile this with the novel. He was supposed to go to the station while Yi and Li began their first date. Li's extraordinary skill made her fearless of most suitors, but Yi was meant to break through that confidence and weave a love trap she would mistake for true love. After hearing that entire prediction, Li took a breath and ordered Wei brought in too, supposedly for other possible cases. Her officers hesitated. Wei was one of Shanghai's 4 young masters. His influence made a casual arrest dangerous. Li answered coolly that she would take responsibility for whatever followed. Wei was ecstatic. To him, this proved Li and Yi had already joined forces. Arresting Yi was only theater, and Wei had been the true target all along. Convinced their acting had nearly fooled him, he cooperated happily. Li kicked the door open and strode out, leaving her officers terrified by her fury. Inside the station's main office, Yi watched Wei from a distance with open resentment. Li treated the false report inquiry as real, not as courtship theater. Her rule was blunt. Dishonest, bad actors sometimes required forceful methods. Wei could only stare at the unfolding scene, his expression increasingly disordered. Li's real target was the mystery surrounding Wei. A capable investigator and experienced case solver, she searched the internal police system for anything resembling the eavesdropping of inner thoughts. The records returned nothing. No comparable case had ever been logged. Whatever connected her to Wei lay outside known precedent. Li approached with a cold face and asked whether Wei knew there was something strange about him. He paused, then answered casually that he knew. It rose easily and was especially hard. Li spat that she was not talking about that. Even now, he had no idea what she truly meant. Li said the truth plainly. She could hear his inner thoughts, or she tried to. At the crucial moment, her voice vanished. Wei heard nothing. To him, she merely stopped herself in the middle of speaking. Li froze, stunned by a silence she had neither chosen nor understood. With no precedent in the system and no ability to tell him the truth, Li's imagination surged ahead of the evidence. Could she and Wei share some hidden connection, something arranged in the unseen world, that allowed his thoughts to reach her? She studied him anew, while he remained oblivious to the mystery between them. Li Sha kept watching Wei in troubled silence. He noticed the weariness hiding between her brows. Beneath her energy and severity, he saw a kind woman who hated evil and refused to release anyone she believed guilty. Wei thought her powerful family could have bought her an easy life of gowns and red wine. Instead, she chose thankless police work and endured colleagues who called her hypocritical. Who, he wondered, understood her need to punish evil and protect good. And Wei's thoughts cut the other way. Li was too naive to recognize a man's twists and schemes. In the story, Yi Fan would use one small trick, move her to tears, and make this pitiful woman his lover. Was Wei a man from the future? Did he truly know everything? Fighting to keep her expression steady, Li asked whether he had anything to explain. Wei only smiled and called the entire affair a misunderstanding. Inside, Wei was delighted. He had entered the station, Li Sha had met Yi Fan, and today's assignment was finished. When Li abruptly asked what he thought of Yi, he masked his surprise and answered pleasantly, still convinced the original romance was moving forward. Tires screeched at the entrance. A black Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped, and Ning Xingruo stepped out in a fiery red gown. Tall, with long, wavy hair and the aura of a queen, she crossed the office beneath every watching eye. Ning smiled at Wei. She had learned his situation during their earlier phone call and had come to collect her darling for a meeting. Then she faced the room. Whatever tricks or positions her Tianci wanted, she would satisfy him herself. Ning added that a man with her at home would never seek mediocre women outside. The accusation was nonsense. The men stared in envy. Li confirmed the misunderstanding, yet beside Ning's mature elegance, her practical uniform suddenly felt painfully plain. His eyes reddened with jealousy. Why did a woman this exceptional dote on Wei? As Mayu joined the widening confrontation, Wei's private judgment struck the listening women again. Li wondered whether he knew everyone's endings. Ning finally knew the voice was real. Ning turned her gentle smile on him. Everyone in Shanghai knew and hated Wei, she said, so she should stop playing thief crying thief. Wasn't Yifan Ankeng Group's security guard? If An had arranged this trap, she should admit it. And snapped that Ning was talking nonsense. He was not her man. He was merely a security guard in her group, and she had no dealings with him. Her baffled glance slid toward Wei, but Ning impatiently declared that Wei had loved the wrong woman. And Ning delivered her bad news. Tianxing Group's version 3 blood pressure medication would enter the market tomorrow. The version 2 product An had released today would become obsolete immediately. Ning laughed, leaving her rival to absorb the blow. Ning's announcement struck exactly where it hurt. Ankang and Tianxing had competed for years, but however hard Mayu worked, Ning Xingruo always seemed to eclipse her. Now An's new version 2 medicine faced instant obsolescence, while Ning stood before her with the composure of someone already holding victory. Cornered in business and changed weapons, she conceded that Ning might manage a company better, then declared that Ning still could not capture a man's heart. The room erupted. Wei's infatuation with An was an open secret among the elite, but nobody had dared confront his proud fiancé with it so bluntly. Ning merely narrowed her eyes and smiled. Everything had cause and effect, she said. If Wei liked An's cold, commanding CEO persona, Tianxing only had to beat Ankang back step by step. Once An was ruined, stripped of pride and authority, how much charm would remain for Wei to admire? The crisp goodbye, Ning took Wei's arm and dragged him toward the Rolls-Royce. Wei had played dead through the entire clash, not because he felt trapped between two women, but because his assigned plot for the day was finished. As far as he was concerned, everyone had received the ending they needed. The rest could sort itself out. Back at Tianxing Group, Ning took command of the meeting and Wei sat beside her. The arrangement surprised nobody. They each owned half the company, but Wei had always been a hands-off manager. Ning was the one who supported its weight, directed its people, and kept the entire enterprise moving. Watching the glamorous executive beside him, Wei could not understand the original story's obsession with him, and only wore a cold face and pretended to be aloof. Ning crossed her legs, swept the room with torch-bright eyes, and made every sentence count. Her employees respected her. This was real talent, real charisma, and beauty worthy of both. Wei's frustration sharpened. The original Wei Tianci had ignored this extraordinary fiancé to chase Mayu instead. Was he blind? Had the author lost all sense? Ning's speech continued, but the private condemnation reached her clearly, and so did the truth beneath it, in Wei's heart, and could not compare with her. Ning's heart skipped. The voice had returned. The first time had not been an auditory hallucination. Her fiancé did not secretly despise her. He considered her the perfect woman beside him, and all her work had finally been seen. The sting of An's earlier taunt vanished. Ning turned sparkling, affectionate eyes on Wei in the middle of her own speech. He could not understand her affectionate stare. His assigned role demanded a one-sided obsession with a not tenderness toward Ning. Yet his mind immediately betrayed that performance. Across all Shanghai, who could be more beautiful or moving than Ning Xingruo, and could not compare? Without this damned mission, he would never pursue An or provoke the protagonist Yifan. Wei's real wish was almost embarrassingly simple. Forget the mission, avoid Yifan, laze around, and live off his Xingruo. Ning stared at him as tears of joy spilled down her face. Then she lunged forward and hugged him tightly, swearing that with her there, nobody would bully him. Wei coughed against her embrace and threatened to scream harassment. The entire meeting went silent. Still holding Wei before the stunned meeting, Ning Xingruo finally understood the shape of his nightmare. His mission forced him toward Mayu, and Yifan was meant to crush him. A dangerous sharpness entered her eyes. Mortal, protagonist, or heaven itself, she would fight anything that threatened her future with Tianci. As the meeting wound down, Security Minister Dao Lei circulated tomorrow's press conference schedule. Wei flipped through it. Tianxing's version 3 blood pressure medication was their flagship, a likely blockbuster, while every competitor still lingered an entire generation behind at version 2. Wei knew tomorrow's script. To win in Mayu's favor, the Dragon Emperor Yifan would play Master Thief and steal the top-secret formula. Tianxing would be humiliated before the press and spiral into decline. Yifan, meanwhile, would invest in Ankang, gain shares, and move closer to An. Wei tossed the schedule down, folded his arms, and closed his eyes. Better to finish the plot quickly and be done with it. Ning heard every word. While he rested with infuriating calm, outrage surged through her. Yifan meant to ruin their company through petty theft, and Wei intended to let him. Ning abruptly asked Dao whether he planned to attend a dance party that night. Her lightning-sharp gaze pinned him down. There would be drinking and revelry, yet the head of security meant to carry the formula-safe key into that crowd. How, she demanded, could either owner possibly feel at ease? Dao paled at the reach of Ning's intelligence, then recovered with a boast. He was Tianxi's famous king of alcohol. Even 3 to 5 caddies of white spirits meant nothing. Wei nearly laughed inside. Against a Qi refinement dragon emperor who could force alcohol from his body, Dao was not a king, he was prey. Out loud, Wei defended his former subordinate. Dao had rare talent, and Tianxi had already completed 8 or 10 press conferences without failure. Ning was worrying too much. With infuriating finality, Wei approved the plan and declared that security did not need strengthening, carefully preserving the trap he knew was coming. Ning rolled her eyes. Wretch. She might not know what unspeakable difficulty bound him, but she was still his devoted fiancée, his family. Anyone targeting Wei or Tianxi became her enemy. The processes he could not interfere with, she would. The protagonist he dared not offend, she would offend. She would brave any danger for him. Ning's attention snapped coldly back to Dao. Wei's approval would not make her ignore a master thief targeting the carried key and Tianxi's formula. Her intervention stripped away Dao's earlier bravado. By the time she finished, the security chief looked at her with guilt, ashamed that he had been so obstinate. Completely bewildered, Wei asked where she had obtained such intelligence. In the original book, Yifan stole the key without a single hitch. Ning calmly tucked a strand of hair behind her ear and credited the Ning family intelligence team. The lie cost her nothing. Everything she did was for the man she loved. Wei sheepishly admitted that with Ning supporting Tianxi, how could the company fail to grow? He was genuinely touched that she had mobilized her family. His inner voice said something else entirely. My dear lady, you are going to be the death of me. If this plot breaks, something major will happen. Ning pursed her lips into a smile. Half the group was her dowry, so naturally she wanted it to flourish. More softly, she called Tianxi a testament to their love. She would nurture it into a towering tree, rooted not merely in business ambition, but in the future Wei kept insisting the plot would deny them. Her ambition rose with every phrase. Tianxi of Shanghai, Tianxi of Asia, Tianxi of the world enduring as a diamond. The room was moved. Even the company's name carried their bond. The Tian of Wei Tianci joined forever to the Xing of Ning Xingriwo. Ning's vow still hung over the meeting. Everyone understood the company now, and they understood her devotion even better. Their sympathy settled entirely on President Ning. To them, the woman had offered Wei Tianci her heart and half an empire, only to receive cruelty in return. Wei answered with carefully performed unhappiness. Who said he wanted to marry Ning? And Mayu was his true love. Inside, the calculation was desperate. If he ended up with Ning, he could not pursue and Yifan could not defeat him, and every heroine's route would unravel. Shareholders expected a volcanic response. Instead, Ning shifted closer. Before anyone could understand what she intended, the formidable president tilted her head and rested it on Wei's bare shoulder, wearing an expression of effortless tenderness. Ning softly told him it was all right. He could pursue Mayu. If and came to like him, Ning would even be happy for them. The entire room went blank. Wei had tried to restore the script, and Ning had simply absorbed the insult without surrendering him. This was no dependent lover. Ning Xingriwo was a wealthy heiress, elegant, poised, beautiful, and capable. Under her leadership, Tianxi had become Shanghai's leading pharmaceutical group. Watching such a queen-level woman tolerate a supposed third party only made the attendees ache for her more. Unable to endure the contradiction, Wei asked what could possibly be so good about him. Ning giggled. Everything was good, she could never love him enough. Then she brought her lips close to his ear and murmured that pleasure shared by a man and woman was hardly a mistake. Like a delighted girl, Ning wrapped both arms around his arm and nestled against him. The warmth and fragrance scattered Wei's thoughts. His inner voice begged her not to tempt him. His willpower was not nearly as strong as the physique he had gained. Hearing every private protest, Ning turned sideways and laid her fair right thigh across his leg. Wei nearly cried out at the broad daylight attack. She would have welcomed a deeper conversation with her fiancé, but not as a live broadcast. Her tenderness belonged to one person alone. Ning coolly asked why everyone was still staring. Dao Lei seized the opening. If a master thief had targeted him, where could he possibly be safe? The executive's embarrassment vanished. Dao carried the route to Tianxi's formula, and the threat was no longer abstract. Wei's first priority remained absurdly rigid. Yifan had to obtain the key because the original plot required it. Ning, however, had no intention of leaving Dao helpless. If the expected thief was going to follow that route, she would let him walk into a monitored operation. The charming look toward her fiancé, Ning added hidden cameras near the formula safe. She wanted the thief's height, weight, and build enough to ruin him. Privately, the target had a name, Yifan. If he threatened her fiancé, she would deal with him herself. Wei turned to stone. By evening, the plan was live. Tianxi's executives crowded into the multimedia conference room, their earlier gossip replaced by total concentration. On the projector, the Bund Hotel rooftop glittered with well-dressed guests, raised glasses, and graceful dancing. Ning held the walkie-talkie and watched for the story's supposed hero. At an inconspicuous corner booth, Dao Lei sat alone and dazed amid the celebration. He looked ordinary from a distance. Up close, a concealed earpiece sat in his ear and a hidden camera rode on his glasses. Tianxi's security director had been equipped like a secret agent. A simply dressed young man appeared among the evening finery. He paused, scanned the rooftop, and fixed on Dao's isolated booth. Without wandering or greeting anyone else, Yifan walked straight across the party and took the empty seat opposite Tianxi's waiting security director. Seated opposite Dao Lei, Yifan opened with an easy invitation to share some fine wine. In Tianxi's remote command room, Ning Xingruo watched through the camera hidden on Dao's glasses and supplied his answer. He was troubled, in no mood to drink, and wanted to know who this stranger was. He introduced himself as an Ankang Group employee and one of Dao's professional counterparts. Behind his faint smile, however, his mood darkened. He had planned to get Dao drunk, remove the formula-safe key, copy it, and return the original unnoticed. A target who would not touch his glass ruined that clean route. Following Ning's lead, Dao warned that Tianxing and Ankang stood in opposing camps. He gently insisted that workplace rivals could still be friends after hours. Then he narrowed a man's troubles to money or women. Dao claimed a virtuous wife and filial children, and he eagerly concluded that money must be the weakness. He asked whether Wei Tianci and President Ning treated a Tianxing veteran well. Dao waved him off with a dismissive, just so-so. Delighted by what sounded like resentment, he lowered his voice and offered a money-making opportunity. Dao answered, "I want it," so quickly that even Yi paused and asked whether he wanted the details first. From the command room, Ning's playful expression sharpened. Her correction was only 2 words, pounds sterling. Dao nearly broke character. 100 million pounds meant 900 million Chinese yuan. Though privately wondering whether the demand would get him beaten, he calmly repeated it. He exploded, asking whether Dao thought he owned a money-printing factory. Dao recovered and argued that Tianxing's formula was worth several billion. He protested that this fortune would buy only a safe key, not the formula itself. Dao answered by pricing everything the key might unlock, and Ma Yu's heart, recognition of Yi's ability, and a damaging victory over his love rival, Wei Tianci. When he still called the price excessive, Dao asked him to calculate the return from becoming the man beside Ankang's female president. Catching a big fish required bait. Then Dao dismissed him as indecisive, stood, and moved to leave. The tactic struck home. He sprang up and blocked his path rather than let the opportunity vanish. The operation turned into a windfall. Ning drove a sullen Wei Tianci to Global Shopping Center. She claimed money like that had to be spent and also needed an outfit for the next day's press conference. On arrival, Wei discovered she had invited his mother, Fang Rong, too. His private outing had become a family inspection. Inside Hermes, Ning changed into a sky blue kipao pattern like blue and white porcelain. Her height and elegant temperament gave the garment an immediate nobility. She turned toward her fiancé with open expectation and asked, "Darling, does it look good?" For one suspended moment, the luxury store felt like a private fitting. Wei's thoughts answered honestly. Ning already knew how beautiful she was, how striking her figure looked, and that no woman in the entire shopping center could be more charming. But he remembered the persona he had to maintain. Out loud, he scoffed that she looked merely average, and that Ma Yu wore a kipao far better. Fang Rong's delighted smile froze. Fang Rong's frozen smile concealed a larger disappointment. The Wei and Ning families had built Tianxing Group together partly, so the outstanding Ning Xingruo might replace Ma Yu in her son's heart. Ning's joy, her invitation, and her generosity tonight had convinced Fang that the plan was finally working. Wei's insult shattered that hope. Ning stepped in before the embarrassment could deepen. She told Fang that Tianci was only joking. Her defense made Fang feel worse, not better. Fang turned on her son and demanded to know what was so wonderful about Ma Yu. Couldn't possibly compare with Xingruo. He should stop rejecting the blessing directly in front of him. Wei answered with the line his role demanded. And Ma Yu was good in every way. Unlike this arranged engagement, she was the woman he had pursued through free love. His hidden thoughts immediately betrayed him. Any man handed a fiancé like Ning would be grinning as if fortune had fallen from the sky. Failing to value her would require madness. And was furious that her own son could be so dense. Unable to rescue his behavior, she squeezed Ning's hand. Xingruo was a talented, beautiful heiress whom powerful families across the Shanghai area wanted as a daughter-in-law, yet she had chosen Wei. Fang felt pride on his behalf, and pity that such a young woman had chosen someone who did not deserve her. Ning answered Fang's concern with such patience and willingness to compromise that Fang decided she could no longer stand by. Wei was dumbfounded. Without his noticing, Ning had pulled his own mother onto her side. Admirable as the maneuver was, it frightened him. If Xingruo kept changing the prescribed story, was she going to collapse the plot and disappear along with him? Ning soothed Fang further. Tianci was merely shy and bad at expressing himself, she said. In truth, he liked her quite a bit. Then she blinked at Wei, spun to display the kipao and changed the subject. What did he think she would look good in? Wei coldly told her to ask his mother because he knew nothing about clothes. His thoughts were far more specific. With Xing Ryu's flawless long legs, black stockings, and a hip-hugging skirt would be unbeatable. But he dismissed the idea as fantasy. At work she wore suits, on days off, modest long dresses. The proud Ning heiress would never lower herself to dress provocatively just to please a man. Wei sat down to rest and sent the women browsing without him. Ning returned, she called him darling and spun once more. Wei stared. She had exchanged the kipao for high heels, black silk stockings, and a tight blue skirt cinched at the waist and fitted over her hips. Her long hair flowed around the mature new look. She had reproduced the desire he had never spoken, and for a moment even his breathing failed him. Shopping trip ended with Ning having answered Wei's hidden preference more accurately than any spoken request. Later, the three brought their purchases to the Wei family residence. There, Ning approached Wei Tianci's dignified father, Wei Xiangdong, with a boxed fountain pen selected especially for him. Ning explained why the gift was personal. Fang had told her that Wei Xiangdong worked so hard he often remained at his desk until midnight. He had worn out fountain pen after fountain pen and never found time to replace them. The observation pleased him, but Ning had prepared one more move. Ning delivered the decisive line. Tianci had suggested buying him the best fountain pen. Wei nearly cursed in admiration. In one sentence, Ning pleased both parents. Fang heard proof that the young couple secretly planned gifts together, while Wei Xiangdong heard that his previously careless son had finally thought of him. Rare gentle smile crossed Wei Xiangdong's dignified face. Perhaps Xing Ryu truly was good at training people, even that brat Tianci seemed to be turning over a new leaf. He accepted the pen box and thanked them both. Fang's joy deepened. To the parents, the engagement no longer looked merely arranged. It looked warm, cooperative, and built to last. Wei Xiangdong invited everyone into the sofa area. Fang prepared fruit, and the family settled into an unusually peaceful conversation. The pen rested nearby as quiet proof of Ning's success. She had won sympathy at the mall, fulfilled Wei's hidden wish, and now persuaded both parents that their children were drawing closer. Wei could not share their peace. According to the story he remembered, this very night marked the beginning of the Wei family's Waterloo. The first blow was precise. Tianxing's anti-hypertensive drug formula would be stolen, and the group's performance would plummet. Around him, his parents smiled and Ning sat close. Inside his mind, the countdown to their ruin had already begun. Stolen formula was only the first domino. In the future, Wei remembered, his mother would drain money into Tianxing just as international giants attacked the family's own group. Then fabricated charges would force his father from office. Every attempt to save one disaster would drag them deeper into the next. Final blow was Wei's own death. It nearly destroyed both parents. While every other family kicked the Weis when they were down, Ning, still unmarried and without standing in the family, would shoulder everything. She would care for the grieving couple and seek revenge for the man she had lost. But Ning had changed the incident that began this collapse. Was that a blessing or the trigger for something worse? Wei saw no safe path. Follow the script and his family was ruined. Break it too far and the world inside the book might collapse, killing everyone. He had to find a third way. Ning had heard every frightened calculation. She reached over and gripped Wei's hand tightly. Without speaking, she made her choice. He would not fight alone. She would be his partner, stand against Yifan and support him whatever came. Anyone who wanted Wei dead would have to pass through her first. He never noticed how intimate they looked. Wei Xiangdong did. The normally serious father studied their joined hands, then abruptly declared that Xing Ryu and Tianci should marry sooner. The sooner, the better. Fang Rong and Ning immediately brightened, while the unsuspecting son was dragged from apocalypse into marriage talk. Ning's first piece of good news was enormous. Tianxing had successfully completed version 3 of its anti-hypertensive drug, and the product would launch tomorrow. She laid out its market potential and called it their King Bomb, a breakthrough capable of transforming the company's future. Wei parents needed no further persuasion. Their experience let them see Tianxing's vast prospects at once. Even the severe Wei Xiangdong cracked a joke. Their Xing Ryu clearly brought prosperity to her husband. Ning accepted the praise only by sharing it. This success belonged to her and Wei together. Fang Rong refused to let the praise inflate her son. She took Ning's hand and promised that if Wei ever bullied her, one call would bring his mother running with a rolling pin. Ning giggled and agreed, delighted to receive what felt like royal authority. Wei could only sit there, speechlessly aggrieved. Second piece of good news carried teeth. People from Huichun Group had targeted Tianxing's new formula. Ning did not merely stop them. She used a few tricks to turn the scheme into a windfall. That unexpected money had paid for today's shopping and quietly rewritten the disaster Wei remembered. Wei Xiangdong slammed the table. Targeting the formula was outrageous, a direct attack on Zhanghai's business order, and he wanted it handled severely. He asked Ning for the master thief's name with the unmistakable air of a man ready to intervene personally. His concern was genuine, and that made the offer dangerous. Wei hurriedly thanked his father, then drew a firm boundary. He and Ning were adults. Tianxing was their group, and they could handle its affairs themselves. Wei Xiangdong had too many larger responsibilities to waste energy here. What Wei did not say was that the thief was Yifan, and careless pressure could rebound on them all. While the news played and the others remained occupied, Fang Rong quietly slipped upstairs. She returned carrying something concealed and waited. As soon as the broadcast ended and Wei Xiangdong switched off the television, she moved beside Ning with the pleased secrecy of someone ready to complete a plan. Fang placed a set of keys and a property deed in Ning's hands. The gift from her and Wei Xiangdong was a large, fully renovated Riverview flat at Thompson Riviera. They were giving it early, before the wedding, so Wei and Ning would already have a love nest of their own. Ning was startled, but she did not perform a polite refusal. She accepted the gift happily and thanked both parents. More importantly, she immediately imagined it as their home. She would make it warm, she promised, and ensure Wei could live there comfortably. Wei Xiangdong answered with a rare, satisfied smile. Fang was already planning further ahead. Now that they had a love nest, the couple could have children whenever they wished. The flat was so spacious, she joked, that 8 or 10 would be no problem. Wei's face darkened with embarrassment. Xing Ryu was not even married into the family yet. She was still a maiden. The joke about future children should have passed with Wei's embarrassed protest. Instead, his private answer turned bleak. If he had any choice, he would live shamelessly and happily with Xing Ryu. But the script denied them even marriage. Only while dying in her arms would he finally understand heartbreak and love. Wei's face grew heavy. Ning heard every word. Her body trembled, but grief hardened into silent determination. She would not quietly accept a fate that took him from her. Fang Rong noticed the change, signaled Wei Xiangdong, and tugged her husband upstairs, deliberately leaving the troubled couple alone. Wei sat silently on the sofa. Ning refused to let him sink deeper. Feigning casual ease, she reclined and placed her black-stockinged feet across his thighs. Then she challenged Zhanghai's notorious young master. If massage parlors were truly his favorite haunt, surely he had learned enough technique to serve his own fiancée. Wei froze at her rosy face, then at 10 red-painted toes glimmering through dark silk. He took her arched feet anyway, scolding that proper customers washed first and hers smelled terrible. His delighted inner praise betrayed the lie. Ning blushed, raised a foot toward his nose, and dared him to smell it. Wei surrendered and began the massage. His hands found the proper acupoints with suspicious precision, and he explained them as he worked. Ning relaxed under his touch, but the skill sharpened her curiosity. Just how much had this supposed playboy learned during all those nights outside? Wei decided they were playing with fire. To hit the brakes, he casually boasted that women outside knew endless tricks and would go all out. Young ladies like Ning and Enmayu were only beautiful vases, he claimed. Real technique belonged to pleasure house girls. Then he waited for Ning to explode and leave. But Wei's inner voice contradicted every boast. He did not mess around outside. Even if he cared nothing for himself, Ning was his fiancée and worked beside him every day. The thought of catching a disease, passing it to her, and causing her harm would break his heart. Instead of storming away, Ning declared that she would learn foot washing and massage too. Her delicate hands began awkwardly working on Wei's foot while he still held hers. Remembering the acupoints he had shown her, she grew earnest. Wei stared in disbelief. Was this really the domineering queen he knew? Next day, Ankeng Group's shareholders gathered with Enmayu. Yifan entered stylishly, one hand in his pocket and an evil, charming smile aimed at her. He announced 2 pieces of good news, a double celebration. Anne's eyelid twitched. Wei had opened yesterday's press conference with those exact words. He raised one finger and laid his cards on the table. He was a billionaire and Ankeng Group's newest shareholder. A stack of documents landed before the room. Before yesterday's market close, he had spent $3 billion to acquire 5% of the company. Then he pulled out a chair and sat down lazily. Shareholders exchanged stunned, knowing looks. A lowly security guard had become a billionaire tycoon overnight, and everyone reached the same conclusion. Every step was aimed at President N. They were right. He had joined Ankeng for Enmayu's body. When the humble disguise failed, he chose money and power as his next approach. Yifan waited for fascination. He had exposed billions in wealth and bought 5% of Ankeng merely to approach Enmayu. Surely she would finally understand his strength. Instead, and glanced over the shareholder documents, tossed them aside, and asked without warmth, "And then, what else do you want to say?" He seethed. Why was she not asking where his money came from, or moved that a rich man had lived as a nobody for her? Yet and was angrier still. Everything was unfolding as Wei Tianci's inner voice had warned. A man who could spend billions had hidden beside her as a security guard. To her, that felt less romantic than predatory. Paired with Yi, Wei Tianci suddenly felt safer, and could hear Wei's thoughts, embarrassing as they were. Yi remained a poisonous snake hidden in shadow. Her absolute authority set the room's temperature, and the other executives followed her lead with cold faces. He saw their rejection and chose to call it a challenge. Dragon Emperor had never failed at winning women, and the first pure yin woman he had found would not defeat him. He adjusted his tone and played his next card. Tianxing Group's press conference began in 1 hour. Its version 3 antihypertensive drug was supposed to receive a grand launch, but his intelligence promised that the formula ceremony would become a public joke. He rose, brushed imaginary dust from himself, and smiled. Why merely hear about Tianxing's humiliation when they could watch it? Ning Xingruo was proud, surely, and wanted to see her expression when the launch collapsed. Rivalry supplied the final push, and slapped the table, stood, and ordered, "Let's head to the Tianxing Group press conference." Led the way out, with Yi and the executives close behind. A mighty motorcade swept toward Tianxing. Watching his plan move exactly where he wanted it, Yi wore a private, profound smile. If the intelligence paid off in front of him, he believed this corporate battle would carry him one step closer to winning her. Tianxing's launch hall was already packed with distinguished guests. Reporters hauled heavy cameras through the crowd, thrilled by a story larger than one new medicine. Tianxing and Ankang were fierce business rivals, while their two celebrated female presidents were tied by gossip to the same man, Wei Tianci. Any collision promised headlines. On stage, Ning Xingruo introduced the new product with composed eloquence. Then the main doors were pushed open. Heads turned together, and the hall erupted when Mayu entered uninvited with a massive Ankang executive team behind her. The very rival everyone had been discussing had arrived to watch from the front row of the story. Whispers grew loud enough to swallow the program. An's fitted white suit outlined her figure, diamond earrings flashing beneath her short hair. Reporters compared her beauty with Ning's and savored the spectacle of two rival presidents sharing one hall, and did not come to hide. She led her people forward under every camera. Ning's gaze sharpened when Yifan joined the exchange, and she offered him no courtesy, and already found Yi strange and refused to prolong the conversation. After the brief clash, Ning answered the intrusion with a cold smile. Throwing them out would only create another spectacle, so she chose the more commanding response. She allowed the entire delegation to sit and observe. Program resumed. Ning remained vibrant on stage, but the Ankang executives watched with barely concealed schadenfreude. They believed calm was all she had left. Once the crucial formula reveal failed in front of those cameras, how would Shanghai's proud #1 pharmaceutical president get off the stage? Conference reached its most ceremonial and dangerous moment. Dynamic music filled the hall. A line of Tianxing executives entered together, pushing a cart toward the stage. On it sat a huge safe crowned with an oversized red flower. Conversation faded as every reporter turned toward the object he had promised would become Tianxing's humiliation. Procedure was designed for maximum publicity. Ning would open the safe, lift out the version 3 formula, hold it high for the cameras, and make the official announcement. Every step depended on that container yielding its prize. Ankang's delegation leaned into the coming moment, certain the grand display was about to become an empty-handed disaster. Yifan watched the safe with a sinister gleam, and was not the only woman folded into his victory. Once Tianxing collapsed, he believed he could find an opening to take Ning Xingruo for himself as well. She appeared devoted to Wei Tianci, but in Yi's mind, devotion was only another obstacle waiting to be removed. The entire launch hall counted down together. At 0, Ning Xingruo opened the huge ceremonial safe, and every voice died. There was no version 3 formula waiting inside. Reporters stared at one another, cameras syncing as whispers spread through the packed room. Ankang's executives came alive, and Mayu smiled and praised Yifan for accurate intelligence. He modestly suggested that their future cooperation would only improve, and smile tightened into a frown, and she gave him no answer, but both still believed Ning's humiliation was complete. And a reporter spotted something small in the safe. Cameras shot back up. Ning reached inside and lifted out a USB drive as calmly as if this were always the plan. Before revealing the formula, she announced the audience would first watch an interesting short video. Ning passed the drive to Dao Lei, head of Tianxing's security department. With a severe expression, he inserted it into the presentation computer. The large screen flickered to life before every guest and reporter. In the audience, Yifan's confidence cracked into a cold premonition. The screen showed Tianxing's pharmacy storage room from above. The same large safe waited below. A man in a mask and hat vaulted through the window, flipped cleanly to the floor, and landed before it. Then he produced a key. Ning had recorded the break-in. Wei Tianci arrived fashionably late and slipped into the last row. From there, he saw An standing beside Yi and apparently shielding him from the fallout. To Wei, it looked perfect. The original male and female leads were drawing closer, exactly as the story required. Heard Wei call her and Yi a match made in heaven. Outrage escaped before caution could stop it. He was the one suited to Yi, not her. But the crucial words vanished into silence. Furious and embarrassed, and searched the crowd for Wei and found no sign of him. Ning watched An's agitation without losing composure. She ordered her to stay after the meeting for a private talk, and nearly snapped that she was no subordinate, until Ning added that refusal carried consequences. The certainty in Ning's voice made An swallow the retort and lower her head. The brief clash did not go unnoticed. Guests whispered that cold, haughty president and was no match for Tianxi's domineering queen. They pointed to the corporate rankings as proof. Tianxi stood first, Ankang second. Ning had not merely blocked the scheme, she had made the hierarchy public. Turned an icy look on Yifan. His intelligence had dragged her here expecting a triumph, only for Ning to slap her down before the entire industry. Wei imagined romance blooming between the original leads. In reality, and now regarded Yi as the pathetic cause of her humiliation. When the press conference ended, reporters, guests, and executives poured from the hall like a tide. Wei saw Ning waiting with folded arms and immediately slipped outside. Whatever was about to pass between these two formidable women, he had no intention of being trapped in the middle. Silence reclaimed the hall. Ning descended from the stage with her arms folded and stopped before him. She was taller and fuller, her star-like eyes carrying effortless authority, and straightened her back and tensed her delicate frame, refusing to look away as she demanded Ning's reason for keeping her. Ning asked one quiet question. Didn't think she possessed front-facing footage of Yifan? And scalp prickled. Still, she denied that the formula thief had anything to do with Ankang. Declaring there was nothing to discuss, she flicked her sleeves and hurried toward the exit rather than face the threat. Before Ning could escape the empty hall, Ning calmly told her to watch the Shanghai news that night. She would give television stations the complete surveillance record, disgrace the industry's scum, and let the entire business world see it. And spun around. If Ning truly possessed a clear view of Yi's face, exposure could devastate Ankang and erase everything it had built. She clenched her fists, cursed Yi in her heart, and finally asked Ning to name her price. Braced for an outrageous demand, Ning merely said, "Treat Tianci better." No violence, no sarcasm, and fewer wounds to his pride. Then came the final condition and was still forbidden to accept his pursuit, and stared at her. Was that really all? Ning's terms hit a ruthless compromise. Wei's inner voice had warned her that he could not be destroyed yet. Tianci still needed his pursuit mission to move forward. She wanted him to suffer fewer rejections, but loved her fiancé far too much to let him actually take him. Outside, Wei Tianci was still lounging in his Mercedes G-Class, shorts and slippers unchanged from his late arrival. His feet rested on the dashboard as he nodded to loud hip-hop, then walked straight over, opened the passenger door, and sat beside him. Wei instantly slipped into character, flattering and declaring that her arrival honored Tianxi, and stared straight at him. He truly had a good fiancé, she said. Wei waved Ning aside and swore and was his only love. His thoughts said the opposite. Ning stood on an entirely higher level. Furious but unable to expose the inner voice, and insisted she was no petty thief and despised underhanded methods. She expected Ning to show Wei the evidence. Inexplicably, the thought of him placing her beside Yi bothered her more than the accusation itself. Wei proclaimed her the perfect goddess and promised to punish anyone who called her a thief. Inside, however, he wondered why she had attended a competitor's launch if not to enjoy Ning's failure, and had wanted exactly that, but she had known nothing about Yi's theft. Grievance flickered across her face. The moment Yi came close, Anne's restraint shattered. She ordered the useless bastard to get lost and poured all her fury over the ruined launch onto him. Then she stormed into the Rolls-Royce and sped away, leaving Yi frozen in her wake. Shock hardened into malice on Yi's face. Wei was even more alarmed. In the original story, the pair should have left together, laughing. He treasured his pride if this humiliation made him abandon and Wei's entire assigned performance, and his hope of preserving the plot could collapse. Wei's heart lurched. He jumped from the car, strode at Yi, and manufactured a furious accusation on the spot. So the lowly security guard had secretly stolen his woman and dared compete with young Master Wei. What love potion had Yi fed in Mayu? Even in his rage, Yi faltered. He asked what Wei meant, then studied him with sudden suspicion. Something did not fit, but Wei had gained the opening he needed. Now he only had to invent a lie convincing enough to turn Anne's rejection into proof of devotion. Wei seized the opening Yi had given him. With perfectly performed fury, he claimed Tianxi possessed a hard drive containing every angle of the theft. Yi's mask and hat had hidden him inside the company, but the taxi Tianxi arranged had filmed him after he uncovered his face. He then supplied the hook Yi most wanted to believe. Feigning wounded embarrassment, he said Mayu had offered him 1 billion to bury the evidence and protect Yi. He demanded to know what love potion a mere security guard had used to earn such devotion. The absurd story landed because it soothed Yi's pride. Anne's rebuke suddenly became concern. Her public rejection became a sacrifice made in secret. Emotion flooded him. He even felt grateful that Wei had revealed her supposed painstaking devotion instead of letting it remain misunderstood. He offered the same 1 billion and demanded the hard drive. Wei agreed to take the money but refused to surrender his leverage, promising only that he would not leak it. When Yi protested, Wei told him to leave and paid more readily, and he could simply collect from her. Ordered, Yi transferred 1 billion. Dragon Emperor Palace remained wealthy, but its recent massive losses made the payment sting. Wei swaggered back into Tianxi, delighted with his villain performance. Behind him, Yi's face turned murderous. The Dragon Emperor would not tolerate humiliation or anyone retaining proof against him. His chosen blade was Kawashima Mai. Dragon Emperor Palace had worked with her before, revealing a brutal creed. Anyone weaker than her was an ant, while anyone stronger could be treated as a god. In this low martial era, luck had carried her to the great perfection of chi refinement. No one had conquered Kawashima because almost no one could surpass her. He intended to change that. After she disposed of Wei, he would reach Foundation establishment, overpower her, and turn the cold-blooded beauty into his weapon and obedient subordinate. His aura stirred the still air as he declared that Shanghai would soon belong to his era. Inside Tianxi's president's office, Ning regarded Wei with a half-smile and asked where the socks she had given him the previous night had gone. Wei stared back and asked if she wanted them returned. The memory was intimate. Before retiring to separate rooms at their parents' home, she had impulsively pressed her warm black silk stockings into his hands. Beyond the teasing, Wei had learned something vital from the system's response to his altered path. It cared most about whether interpersonal relationships changed. Other details could tolerate small deviations. He did not have to reproduce every original beat perfectly, and that freedom gave him far more room to maneuver. Night fell and Shanghai's sophisticated young crowd poured toward A1. The city's most expensive nightclub occupied a priceless old Western mansion transformed into a glittering castle. Luxury cars and beautiful companions streamed through its golden gates while tourists lingered at a distance, whispering and filming the spectacle. For Wei Tianci, leader of Shanghai's 4 young masters, entering A1 felt like coming home. He drove Ning through the gates in his Lamborghini. The waiting groups turned as the engine swept past, then froze when they recognized the license plate, 5 9s. One stunned verdict escaped the crowd, awesome. The crowd still stared into the 5 9's Lamborghini when A1's security guards recognized its owner. Their posture changed at once. They lined both sides of the car, smiling toward Wei Tianci as though a distinguished regular had returned home. He stepped out, tossed a guard the keys, and warned him to protect the car. Then came the part everyone liked, a stack of cash worth at least 10,000 to be split among the brothers. Delighted guards cleared traffic, parked cars, and assigned Wei a personal escort. Ning watched this spirited nightlife version of her fiancé with amused curiosity. Then she glanced at the flashy women nearby and challenged him. Hadn't he claimed all girls dressed like her here? Before leaving, he had rejected her black silk skirt and porcelain kippah, then wrapped her in a trench coat. Wei kept a perfectly straight face. Modern society allowed freedom of dress, he declared. No one would criticize her coat. His inner voice was less diplomatic. Her revealing choices made him uncomfortable, and these nightlife dogs had no right to appreciate her beauty. Ning heard every jealous word and smiled. Wei answered her smile by wrapping a large hand around her slim waist and swaggering into A1. Ning bloomed beside him, imagining the life they might share. The trendy crowd whistled and jeered that young Master Wei had finally figured it out. From a Ferrari, a pale young man watched them disappear inside. Young Master Ma had arrived in his own sports car, yet the crowd ignored him. Wei received stares, valet service, and a top-tier beauty who leaned into him. Jealousy sharpened Ma's question, who was this arrogant kid? Ma's companion supplied the answer. That was Wei Tianci, one of Shanghai's 4 young masters, famous for throwing money around like dirt. Ma snorted. Could Wei be richer than him? His family business had 100 million in cash flow. She praised him flirtatiously while privately judging the outsider hopelessly ignorant. Rather than heed the warning, Ma got out and strode toward the entrance. He announced that they would meet Wei. Beneath that bravado lay a cruder ambition. If he could poach the extraordinary woman at Wei's side, the expense would be worth it. Ma pushed into the hall and called toward Wei, trying to turn his jealousy into a challenge. Wei showed no nervousness at all. He barely granted the newcomer his attention before looking instead toward the stage, where A1's beautiful DJ waited above the crowd. Wei coolly waved to the DJ and gestured around the entire room. She understood immediately. Grabbing the microphone, she sent her voice through every speaker. Friends, all expenses tonight were on young Master Wei. The DJ repeated the offer and A1 exploded. Guests screamed young Master Wei's name. Men raised glasses from across the hall. Women blew him kisses. In seconds, the entire nightclub became a roaring monument to the status Ma had tried to question. Ma urgently asked what one night at A1 cost. His companion answered with growing excitement. Normally tens of millions. With everyone drinking freely on Wei's bill, tonight would probably reach at least 100 million. Ma's eyes widened. That was his proud family cash flow figure, spent in a single gesture. Cold sweat broke across Ma's forehead. Spending 100 million without hesitation placed Wei in an entirely different world. The challenger finally saw the massive gap between them. Beside Wei Tianci, his own boast looked like an egg hurled against a rock. Only then did Wei glance sideways at him. Hadn't Ma been calling earlier? Was something wrong? Under that mild question, Ma turned red. Every trace of his former arrogance vanished, leaving him trapped before the man he had just tried to challenge. Cornered by Wei's mild question, young Master Ma suddenly found inspiration. He claimed he had rushed over only because meeting the famous young Master Wei had overwhelmed him. Then he apologized twice and bowed like a lackey, erasing the last trace of his challenge. Wei dismissed him, put an arm around Ning Xingruo, and strode toward A1's supreme booth. The entire hall still followed them with its eyes. Walking beside him in that attention, Ning studied her fiancé strangely. Against her expectations, he looked genuinely impressive. Once they sat down, smiling young people arrived one after another to greet young Master Wei and raise a glass. A nightlife veteran like Wei had plenty of fair-weather friends. Tonight he refused none of them. Every toast became another drink. And the atmosphere changed. Flashy women began swarming the booth, each displaying her charms. First came the same beauty who had accompanied Ma. Whether sent by him or discarded by him, she bent over in her loose-collared t-shirt and offered Wei an unmistakably provocative toast. Chubby-faced foreign girl followed. In broken Chinese, she claimed that pressing cheeks was how her country expressed gratitude. Before Wei could react, her pink cheek brushed his. She and the other women lingered hopefully, waiting for young Master Wei to invite them closer. Ning made her position unmistakable. The women already saw her as the one with the real claim, and Wei gave them no encouragement to remain. Their hopeful siege dissolved. None of them wanted to struggle against the woman seated at his side. Following his assigned persona, Wei frowned and accused Ning of interfering too much. It was one thing for her to object to his pursuit of Anmayu. But did she also intend to control casual nightclub acquaintances he would forget by tomorrow? Did he have no freedom left? Ning stood, turned, and settled face-to-face on Wei's lap. With her hands on his shoulders, she swayed to the disco beat. To everyone else it looked like ordinary intimacy. To Wei, the warmth beneath her trench coat made restraint increasingly difficult. Breathing faster, Wei warned that they were in public and he was already forcing himself to hold back. Ning blushed, but instead of retreating, she asked with wicked innocence, "Which head?" For once, Wei Tianci had absolutely no answer. Wei's phone vibrated with a WeChat message. Grateful for the distraction, he coughed and opened it. One glance froze his expression. The flirtatious ease vanished and he focused completely on his reply. Ning, startled by that transformation, immediately leaned down to read over him. Sender was a woman saved as Luo Yu. Her profile selfie was cold, every visible piece of clothing black. More troubling was Wei's attention and Luo's invitation. After finally graduating from university, the first thing she wanted was a date with the man who had once changed her life. Wei explained that Luo Yu's parents had both developed cancer during her high school years. Still only a young girl, Luo cared for them in the hospital, studied hard at school, and worked outside class for their medical expenses. She carried student, caregiver, and provider together until exhaustion defined her days. At the time, Wei had heard that charity was the best way to display wealth among playboys. Acting on that vanity, he helped on a whim. Yet the result was enormous. He paid every medical expense for Luo's parents, then covered Luo's tuition and living costs as well. Years passed and Luo graduated from university. Ning felt a sour ache as the meaning settled in. Wei had not merely helped her, he had changed the direction of her life. Of course, Luo held him in a supreme place. Of course, her first post-graduation move was to ask him out. Wei added that Luo Yu was a top-tier genius and a super hacker, but no hidden inner voice accompanied the statement. To Ning, that silence struck harder than the words. Her chest tightened, her heart seeming cut open by one possibility. Did Luo Yu and Tianci truly have a history? Ning's uncertainty did not last. Wei's hidden voice supplied the truth. Tomorrow's date with Luo Yu was no romantic beginning. It was a colossal turning point. The story would force the loyal hacker to darken, drift toward Yifan, and eventually help him attack Tianxing Group and the Wei family. The ending was worse. After Wei was killed, Luo would jump to her death that very day. The author had taken someone loyal to the villain and bent her into another tool for the protagonist's triumph. Wei still had to push that plot forward, and inwardly he raged at its cruelty. Ning stared at him in disbelief. What could possibly make Luo turn against the man who had saved her family and funded her future? What would happen on that date? Beneath those questions came a sharper ache. Tianci had been carrying an impossibly cruel burden all along. Without exposing her secret, Ning cupped Wei's cheeks and pressed her flaming red lips gently to his forehead. It was comfort and encouragement without a word. The kiss startled Wei out of his daze. Watching the emotions cross her face, he realized that his fiancée had been wronged far too much as well. Wei beckoned to the bar manager and asked for a microphone. The startled manager sent his staff scrambling, then returned and presented it with both hands. A spotlight immediately found Wei. Ning, fearless while teasing him in private, suddenly flushed now that the entire bar seemed ready to watch them. Wei began singing Courage, and whatever anyone thought of his technique, the feeling in his voice was unmistakable. The bar could not decide who young Master Wei meant it for. Was it Anmayu, Ning Xingruo, or even himself? The uncertainty only made the performance more arresting. Other people's guesses did not matter. Ning knew. This was Tianci's greatest surprise of the day, and she felt that every line was meant for her, the two of them singing through fear, gossip, and all the roles forced upon them. Joy broke through her composure, and tears filled her eyes. Ning leaned into Wei's arms, wrapped both arms around his waist, and rested her chin on his shoulder. Then she hummed along. Love needed courage to face the gossip, and one affirming look could give that love meaning. Under the spotlight, his private gratitude became their shared confession. Next afternoon, Wei woke hungover in his villa bedroom. Bleary-eyed and hungry after the bar, he went straight to the dining room. A charming middle-aged woman sat there turning through a stack of A4 documents. Housekeeper Wang rose the moment she saw him and offered to prepare porridge. Housekeeper Wang had raised Wei from childhood. Their bond ran deeper than ordinary employment and felt closer than blood. When adult Wei moved out, she had volunteered to follow and continue caring for him, an arrangement the entire Wei family welcomed. Soon, he was lazily drinking the porridge she made. With Wei eating, housekeeper Wang asked why he had brought Xing home the previous night. To her, the answer was obvious. Wei and Ning were already engaged and would marry sooner or later. Her practical suggestion sounded harmless. For Wei, however, marriage was anything but simple. Wei could not marry hastily. Doing so would destroy the prerequisites holding the original story together. A married man could not secretly celebrate Mayu's birthday with her. Then Yifan would have no opening to make trouble, and every later event depending on that confrontation would fail to connect. None of that could be explained aloud. Wei therefore joked that Ning was 3 years older and supposedly unsuitable. He claimed he preferred a younger, tsundere little sister like Mayu. Housekeeper Wang immediately grew anxious. In her eyes, Ning was perfect, and Wei's attitude was the only thing that needed correcting. Housekeeper Wang began earnestly. A woman 3 years older was like holding a gold brick. Then her scale exploded. 30 years older, she would give him a kingdom. 300 years older, an immortal pill. 3,000 years older, and Wei would ascend straight into the immortal ranks. He did not stop. 30,000 years older, the Queen Mother would feed him. 300,000, and he would stand before the Buddha. At 3 million years older, Wei could call the shots throughout the immortal realm. His small joke had become a cosmic lecture delivered in Housekeeper Wang's gentlest voice. Still counting upward, Housekeeper Wang announced that a woman 300 million years older would make Pangu Wei's underling. And at 3 billion years older, he could knead the galaxy with his bare hands. Wei could only sit there as his 3-year objection vanished beneath an entire universe of advantages. Housekeeper Wang's cosmic argument still had one final step. A woman 30 billion years older, she declared, would let Wei crush the 9 heavens and 10 earths barehanded. Therefore, the older the woman, the better. Wei could only stare at her. When Wei demanded to know where she had found such wisdom, Wang triumphantly waved her smartphone. So he tested her logic. She was over 50. What benefit would she give him? Wang started answering, caught his meaning, slapped his shoulder, and flushed. This bad boy was teasing even her. Wei drained the last of his porridge and set down his bowl. Only then did he notice Wang bent over the dining table, writing on a stack of papers. His curiosity replaced the teasing. What was she arranging now? Wang reminded him that his parents had given Ning Xingruo a large Riverview flat at Thompson Riviera. The renovation was finished. Now Madame Wei wanted Wang to tidy it so Wei and Xingruo could move in later, a family plan stated as if the marriage were already settled. Repairing the flat would keep Wang away for 10 days, perhaps half a month. She refused to leave Wei's daily care to chance, so she had advertised for a temporary nanny. The Wei family's high wages drew well-qualified applicants from Eagle Country, America, South Korea, Japan, and beyond. Mid that review, the system abruptly granted Wei another cultivation technique, Lingbo microsteps. The timing gave him pause, but not for long. Refusing a free advantage would be foolish, and adding one more technique to his arsenal was undeniably satisfying. Wei set the mystery aside, grabbed his car keys, and left the villa. Luoyu was waiting for their date at Central Plaza, and he hurried toward the landmark, unaware that another thread of the original story was already tangling itself at the same destination. Central Plaza drew tourists from across China and abroad. Their rental cars also produced a chronic nuisance, illegal parking, excuses of foreign ignorance, and complaints whenever officers intervened. For the city's image, the police stationed there usually answered with patience. Today's assignment was different. Li Sha attacked every violation head-on. She slapped hoods, barked local profanities at domestic drivers, switched to English for foreigners, and crooked a finger at anyone threatening to complain, come down and settle it with fists. Women held up half the sky, she announced. Remarkably, the traffic improved. Yifan arrived in a luxury car and encountered Li Sha. To him, the meeting looked like fate, and the car looked like proof of his transformed status. To a well-informed police captain surrounded by parking violations, it was merely another expensive vehicle that needed to move. Li Sha's first words were not a greeting. Move the car or pay 200 yuan and lose 3 license points. Yifan's confident smile froze. He had staged his entrance for an audience who appeared completely blind to its value. Yifan introduced himself anyway. Officer Li, it was him. Meeting again had to be fate. Li Sha cut him off. She knew exactly who he was, the man who had filed a false police report. After hearing Wei's inner thoughts during that incident, she instinctively resisted Yifan's self-righteousness. Yifan could not understand why someone as outstanding as himself received such cold treatment. Then inspiration struck. She must think the car was rented. She must believe he was still pretending to possess status. Yes, that had to be the reason. His confidence returned with a new plan. Yifan laid his cards on the table. He was a billionaire now, a major private shareholder of Anking Group, not the man he had been before. Then came his grand invitation, dinner that night at the top of Shanghai Center, China's tallest building. He waited for Li Sha to be impressed. Li Sha answered Yifan's grand invitation with one contemptuous word: childish. Dinner atop Shanghai Center was hardly an achievement to her. The entire building belonged to her Li family, so his supposedly irresistible display of wealth only looked embarrassingly cheap. Yifan's anger flared, then his ego produced another explanation. A poised, heroic woman like Li Sha could have chosen a rich man long ago. If she still patrolled the streets, she could not be materialistic. Obviously, she was searching for genuine love. Because Li Sha was both a police officer and a martial artist, Yifan decided money had been the wrong weapon. He would find a chance to conquer her through strength, his own specialty, and force her to see him differently. Once again, he felt certain of victory. Before Yifan could start babbling again, his white-gloved driver interrupted. Kawashima Mai's plane was about to land. The news wiped the flirtation from Yifan's face. This was not an appointment he could casually delay. Yifan was relying on Kawashima to recover the surveillance hard drive and take care of Wei Tianci. Worse, he knew her temper. If he failed to pick her up immediately, she might simply turn around and leave. The mission outweighed one more boast to Li Sha. Yifan smirked and called the police captain Little Li, promising that she would slowly discover his greatness. Then his Mercedes swept away. Li Sha stood behind with a million curses in her head. Who gave him the right to address her so familiarly? Li Sha had absolutely no interest, but her rookie patrol partner saw the scene differently. She looked at her senior with open envy, impressed that Li Sha's charm could inspire such a public confession. The innocent misunderstanding only made Li Sha's temper burn hotter. Li Sha turned sharply. An out-of-control car was already upon her. The crowd went pale and scattered from its path, but she had no time left to dodge. One stark thought flashed through her mind. She was going to die young. Wei Tianci saw the danger and froze for only an instant. If a female lead died here, what would remain of all his work to advance the plot? This was worse than one ruined storyline. The entire world might collapse with her. Wei activated the Lingbo microsteps, the system reward he had received that very morning. With a whoosh, he launched across the plaza like a rocket. He reached Li Sha first, wrapped her tightly against him face-to-face, and turned his own body toward the impact. The car struck Wei's back with a brutal crash. Bronze skin and iron bones took the direct blow, but the force still hurled both him and Li Sha through the air. The crowd could only watch as the legendary playboy carried her away from the vehicle's killing line. Held against Wei as they fell, Li Sha stared at the man she had dismissed as a notorious playboy. She had once dragged an innocent Wei back to the station because she generalized about men like him. Yet when her life was at stake, he had stepped forward. It came down together. Li Sha's old certainty collapsed before Wei's actions. Compared with the character he had just shown, she felt like the clown. She finally admitted that she had been the one generalizing, and a complicated mixture of gratitude, guilt, and emotion rose inside her. Witnesses quickly turned terror into excitement. Praise and romantic suggestions flew through the gathering circle, as if one heroic rescue entitled them to arrange the pair's future. Li Sha stiffened at the ridiculous matchmaking, then glanced toward Wei as the tips of her ears reddened. Wei was horrified by their enthusiasm. These spectators understood nothing. If he slept with Li Sha and cuckolded Yifan, the plot could collapse immediately, and everyone cheering might be buried with it. He needed no romantic pledge from a female lead whose place in the story was dangerously fixed. Besides, Wei thought, Li Sha was a female tyrannosaurus, fierce, adorable, and capable of making anyone walk on eggshells. He did not need her to pledge herself to him. If repayment was unavoidable, perhaps she could serve as his beast of burden in the next life. He sprang up, cupped his hands to every side, and called the rescue a small matter not worth mentioning. Then he slipped through the circle and vanished before the amateur matchmakers could do more damage. His retreat stunned everyone for one beat, then thunderous applause followed him. The onlookers declared that few young people still performed good deeds without leaving a name. They praised Wei's noble character as something beyond their reach. One elderly spectator even regretted that her granddaughter was already married. Otherwise, she would have tried to arrange another match. Matchmaking around the wreck grew merciless. One elder accused another of trying to saddle Wei with a nearly 200-pound granddaughter. Li Sha ignored the laughter, glared after Wei's retreating back, and drove one delicate fist into the accident car's hood. Metal buckled with a bang. Li Sha demanded to know whether she truly had a bad temper. The rookie glanced at the fresh dent and wisely insisted that her senior's personality was wonderful and that many policewomen liked her. Li Sha accepted this testimony with a dark nod. Clearly, some people simply loved to misjudge her. And Wei's inner voice reached Li Sha from the distance. Yes, he still called her a female Tyrannosaurus, but he also admitted her body had been soft and fragrant, and that holding her had felt so comfortable he had not wanted to let go. Li Sha froze. Smile escaped Li Sha, then vanished beneath her captain's composure. With a straight face, she ordered the rookie to finish the traffic accident work and apply for a heroic act certificate for Wei. The rookie agreed at once. His supposedly anonymous rescue was already becoming official. Nearby, in a light luxury studio apartment, Luo Yu emerged from the bathtub after her 5th hot shower. She wanted to be perfectly clean and fragrant when she hosted Brother Tianci. Tall and graceful before the large mirror, she quietly admired the beauty she was about to hide. Piece by piece, Luo Yu covered herself in black. A black scarf and black-rimmed glasses completed the severe presentation, temporarily veiling her breathtaking charm. This was no casual outing. Every shower, garment, and careful adjustment had been chosen for her meeting with Wei. Waiting near Central Plaza, Wei could not treat this as an ordinary reunion. He remembered Luo Yu's legendary original story arc. First, she revered him as a deity. After today's turning point, she darkened and used her hacking for Yi Fan. Then Wei died, and Luo Yu jumped after him. Wei slapped the bench and forced himself to stop thinking. Luo Yu would not turn dark instantly. There was still time to solve that later. A deviation now might destroy his last hope. So he repeated the rule until it felt real. Follow the plot, recreate it 101, and act like an Mayu's foolish admirer. Luo Yu trotted over, then slowed into a reserved smile. Brother Tianci was still so handsome, she told him softly. Wei slipped into character without missing a beat. Of course he was. In fact, he declared the word handsome could summarize his entire life. Playfulness gave way to the memory Luo Yu had never forgot. Her world had once narrowed to a cold hospital room. Then Wei burst into it like a magician issuing commands. Her parents were moved into the best ward and given the best treatment. Wei's help had not ended at the hospital. He sent Luo Yu back to school, paid every tuition bill and living expense, and removed her financial worries. When classmates bullied her, he appeared again, intimidating everyone around her like a god descending from heaven. Luo Yu said she could never repay that kindness. Then, slowly and seriously, she delivered the truth Wei feared most. In her heart, he had long been a deity. Wei crossed his arms and cut her off. She was getting far too sentimental. To him, it had only been a small favor. Wei escaped into the safest subject he could find, food. What was she treating him to? Luo Yu watched his profile with a resentful look, then remembered his taste for steak and proposed the nearby 3-star Michelin Beef King Pavilion. Wei stared at her. That place required reservations half a year ahead. They could not possibly eat there tonight. He finished explaining the obstacle with a playboy's certainty. Even throwing more money at the Beef King Pavilion would accomplish nothing. Its rules were absolute. Luo Yu simply opened the laptop from her backpack. Her fingers blurred over the keys. 3 minutes later, an order from the British headquarters had reserved the restaurant's rare supreme viewing seat. Luo pursed her lips. Hadn't she told him she was a top-tier hacker? Wei blurted that she would have to do him a favor later. She nodded at once. No question, no condition, only, I'm willing. If the underground world learned that the super hacker ghost had made such a promise, jaws would drop. What Wei had just received was priceless. Moments later, the reception manager escorted them through the Beef King Pavilion. The restaurant slowly revolved so every ordinary table could share the glittering Magic City night. Only one booth remained fixed beside the window. Reserved for the world's top VIPs and usually empty, it was the supreme viewing seat. Wealthy diners noticed the young pair taking it, but kept their surprise discreet. Luo ordered 2 steaks according to Wei's taste and added a bottle of Lafite, attentive even in the smallest choice. Before dinner could settle into privacy, Wei's phone rang. The call pulled him away from the supreme booth to finish speaking with the female driver from the earlier incident, leaving Luo alone beside the window with her computer. That was when Ma Junyu marched in. The newly risen young Master Ma had spent freely, made friends everywhere, and collected an eager crowd of sycophants. With one arm around a glamorous companion, he led the group through the restaurant like a conquering procession. His haughty stare sent ordinary people looking down, until he noticed someone sitting in the supreme booth. Ma demanded to know why the booth was occupied when he had been told it was always empty. His companion declared that the newest upstart in the Playboy circle should be sitting there, and the rest joined the clamor. The manager nervously explained that Luo's order came from British headquarters and obeyed every rule. Ma answered by slapping her across the face. Ma surrounded the booth with his people and announced that he was requisitioning the seat. Luo did not even lift her eyes. She continued working. Enraged at being ignored, he demanded to know whether she was deaf. Only then did Luo turn. Her calm, world-weary face remained perfectly still. She did not blink once, and under that silent stare Ma felt an unexpected chill. Luo's composure did not make Ma retreat. When the absent Wei entered the exchange, Ma scoffed. Who was he, her man, her backer? She should call him here. Ma wanted to see who, anywhere on his little territory of the Bund, dared bare their fangs at him. He promised to teach that man a painful lesson while his followers kept Luo boxed in. Outside, Wei finally convinced the female driver that he was unharmed. She left wearing the same worried expression, and Wei drew a deep breath. The sense of being in character, the fragile control he had only just recovered, was gone again. There was no clever correction available now. He would have to take the story one step at a time. Wei reached the entrance and heard the uproar. A few steps inside revealed Luo trapped at the center of Ma's group. His expression turned fierce. With a roar that shook the room, he demanded how the bastard dared bully his person. Wei strode forward like a charging beast and casually snatched a red wine bottle from a nearby table. To the watching diners, he looked murderous and dangerously outnumbered. Wei was not truly outnumbered. The instant Ma Junyu's playboy followers recognized young Master Wei, their bravado vanished. They muttered that this was all a misunderstanding and quietly opened a path, leaving Ma exposed at the center of his own shrinking circle. Ma snatched up another bottle and tried to steady himself with a title. Wei was one of Zhanghai's 4 young masters, but he was the newly emerged 5th. Wei did not let him finish. One swing shattered the bottle across Ma's head, soaking him in red wine. Enraged, Ma lifted his bottle as if to strike. Wei merely pointed to his own head and ordered him to do it. Then, without waiting for an answer, Wei turned his back. Ma had the weapon, the opening, and an audience, but not the courage. Ignoring Ma behind him, Wei sternly asked whether Luo had been hurt and looked her over for any sign of injury. Luo shook her head, then gave him a rare, faint smile. If anyone bullied her, she promised she would say so, because she was his person. Wei raised the champagne and began a cold countdown. 3, 2, before one could fall, Ma's nerve broke. He dropped to his knees with shame burning across his face and forced out 3 admissions. Sister Luo, young Master Wei, I was wrong. Wei ordered Ma to steer clear whenever he saw Sister Luo, or be beaten every time. Ma accepted through a humiliated blush. At Wei's command to get lost, the playboys hauled him away, and their pale, silent companions hurried after them like frightened birds. Only after Ma disappeared did the restaurant breathe again. Diners whispered that it took a villain to deal with a villain. A nervous waiter cleared the wreckage and served Wei and Luo, repeatedly glancing at the man who had just handled young Master Ma like an unruly grandson. Luo stared at Wei and told him he had not changed. Whenever she was helpless, he appeared like a legendary hero riding auspicious clouds. Knowing him, she said, was the luckiest thing in Xiaoyu's life. Wei's gaze tightened, but he dismissed himself as merely a playboy. And Luo heard the thought behind Wei's smile. After tonight, their relationship would change. Her body trembled. If he already knew what came next, could Brother Tianci be a transmigrator? The suspicion sent a storm through her mind and a blush to her ears as she remembered her preparations. Later, in Luo's prepared bedroom, the stakes became brutally clear to Wei. Sleeping with her might feel natural for one night, but he believed it could destroy the novel world's future. For everyone he cared about, including Luo, he clenched his fists and resolved to be ruthless. Delighted by his silence, Luo offered to wipe Wei's face and supported him toward the enormous bed. The white towel and rose petals advertised exactly what she hoped would happen. Wei quietly refused the bed and seated himself on the single sofa beside it instead. Luo shyly misunderstood him. If Brother Tianci preferred doing it sitting down, she told him to wait. Before Wei could correct the assumption, she took the outfit she had prepared long ago and disappeared into the bathroom, leaving him alone beside the rose-covered bed. When the bathroom door opened, Luo wore white silk stockings to her thighs, a plaid skirt, and a fitted white shirt. An eye mask covered her eyes completely. Unable to see Wei, she stood flushed from drink at the threshold, vulnerable, expectant, and ready to feel her way toward him. Softly calling for Brother Tianci, Luo stepped forward without shoes, her white-stockinged feet crossing the floor. The eye mask left her completely blind. With both hands extended, she felt her way through the rose-prepared bedroom until she found Wei. Luo settled, facing him on his lap. Wei's silent apology reached her as exposed inner thought, but she mistook it for hesitation. Joy surged through her. She had awaited this moment too long, and she hurried to show that he had nothing to apologize for. The instant Luo tried to go further, Wei caught both wrists. He rose in one sharp motion and put her back onto the white bed. His voice turned stern. Luo was drunk. For the original plot, his refusal had to be exact. Trembling, Luo pulled off the eye mask and searched Wei's face. His eyes held no desire. He told her not to misunderstand him again. From beginning to end, the only woman he had liked was Mayu. He said he had no interest in Ning Xingruo and none in Luo either. And Mayu was the one boundary nobody could cross. If Luo stopped these games, they could remain friends. Otherwise, even that bond would not survive. Luo insisted she was not drunk. She had prepared for this day for 3 years and waited just as long. She never meant to compete with Enmayu. She only wanted to give herself to Wei and asked through tears whether he truly found her so terrible. Wei answered that his pure love for Enmayu could tolerate no flaw and warned Luo not to make him loathe her. Then he compounded the cruelty by keeping her assigned to approach and investigate Yi Fan, the man around whom the original plot required her future to turn. Inside, Wei condemned himself. This rejection would create the crack through which Yi Fan won Luo over. She would darken, join him, and help force Wei toward death. Luo heard every word. Her expression changed, and she nearly fainted beneath the shock. Luo bit through her lip and asked who Yi Fan was. Wei called him an elite returned from overseas and admitted his intelligence was incomplete. Yet his thoughts supplied the danger. He was young, skilled, and the leader of Dragon Emperor Palace. Luo whispered that she would remember Yi Fan. Wei, unable to face what he had done, proposed that tonight become a dream. Tomorrow she would again be his little sister, and they would still be friends. Luo forced a smile and agreed. Wei opened the door and fled. In the dead silence, Luo moved like a walking corpse into the bathroom. Facing the large mirror, she recited how Brother Tianci had rescued and supported her, then condemned the future self who could repay him with betrayal. Her fist struck the mirror, injuring her right hand. Elsewhere, Yi Fan sat at an extravagant round table opposite Kawashima Mai. Desire flashed in his eyes. Her snow-white kimono and fitted obi framed an elegant silhouette, while her upstyled hair revealed a delicate face, high-bridged nose, and small rosy ears. Kawashima raised one fair hand, cutting Yi off, and told the waiter to replace the entire table. The startled waiter asked if she was certain. 20 untouched masterpieces had been prepared for only 2 people, an imperial-scale feast worth a fortune. Even Yi frowned and asked whether the food displeased her. Kawashima lifted her tea and answered without emotion. He had sneezed at the table, so she could no longer eat. Yi protested that he had turned his head. One sharp glance dismissed the defense. Furious but overruled, he ordered the dishes changed. 4 waiters swept away the untouched feast and replaced it dish by dish. Amid the bustle, Yi Fan leaned toward Kawashima Mai. She had to obtain the surveillance hard drive, he insisted. If retrieval proved impossible, she had to destroy it. Kawashima sipped her tea without lifting her eyes. She did not need Yi teaching her how to work. A shadow crossed his face. Once he reached Foundation establishment, he promised himself he would finally teach this cold, arrogant woman who held the power. The replacement meal ended in silence. Kawashima set down her chopsticks, rose with perfect elegance, and left without another word. Startled, Yi followed and offered a car to her hotel. This time she accepted, and they waited together beneath Shanghai's crowded night. A tattooed thug steered a snarling Tibetan mastiff toward Kawashima, eager to see the Snow Lotus beauty panic. She merely observed that his dog was noisy. The man sneered that only mutes were quiet. The mastiff lunged, and the intimidation ended with the vicious animal dead. At 3 that afternoon, Wei Tianci woke to the system's chime. Teizu Long Fist had reached maximum level. Yet for the first time, a reward brought little joy. It felt less like a gift than another hot potato from the story controlling his life. Wei decided he had to break the situation early, not only to free himself, but to free Luo Yu and everyone he loved, along with everyone who loved him. The declaration hardened his mood. Power meant little while the novel could still dictate their tragedies. Tomorrow, Wei had to stage Enmayu's grand birthday at the Bund. A light show, a fireworks display, a candlelight dinner, and an enormous cake. Every romantic flourish served the villain role assigned to him. Most critically, Yi Fan had to attend. Required chain was absurdly precise. You would sabotage the light show, report Wei's city center fireworks, and watch him get arrested. Inside detention, you would accidentally find his father's killer. Revenge would then deliver a major fortune, the turning point of his rise in Shanghai. Without that fortune, Yi might remain a nobody forever, and a novel built around a powerless protagonist could collapse. Wei refused to gamble on coincidence. To keep the world's central plot moving while searching for an escape, he immediately called Luo Yu. Feigning ease and following the original dialogue, Wei asked whether Luo had interviewed at Ankang Group. She answered quietly. Yi knew the hacker ghost's reputation and hired her that morning without hesitation. She now worked in the computer center, the department Yi himself led. They cheerfully introduced tomorrow's birthday celebration for Enmayu at the Bund, preserving the script the original plot required. Beneath the performance lay a single purpose. Luo had to let that information reach Yi so he would walk into the light show and fireworks sequence. At Luo's workstation, Yi studied her bandaged right hand with concern. A top hacker's hands were priceless, he said. Work that slowed her recovery or left a permanent scar would not be worth it. Privately, he understood Ghost's value and was willing to play the long game. Luo answered only, "Anything else?" Yi paused, then produced a bottle of golden sore medicine. It was effective for external injuries, he explained, and could be used as a hot compress. He claimed a friend had obtained it at great expense and that he brought it straight to her. Luo felt only cold disgust. To her, every word exposed wild ambition and another calculated step. She repeated, "Anything else?" Yi's patience finally cracked. Kawashima's temper had already humiliated him. Now even this aloof computer expert was treating him as though he were beneath her. Yi's patience snapped. Why was an intellectual who merely played with computers acting so arrogant? He pressed Luo for an answer. She crossed her arms, leaned back, and closed her eyes so she would not have to see his disgusting face. Then she gave him exactly what Wei intended. Tomorrow night, Wei Tianci would hold an Mayu's birthday party at the Bund. His anger vanished. He praised Ghost for finding useful information so quickly, thanked her, and hurried away. Only then did Luo open her eyes. She picked up his expensive medicine and dropped it into the trash. Studying her bandaged right hand, she murmured that a permanent scar would be perfect. It would remain as proof that she had betrayed Brother Tianci. Elsewhere, Wei sat lost in thought after the call. He finally understood part of Luo's original betrayal. She had gathered the courage to confess and offer him everything. He rejected her, then made her help him pursue another woman year after year. In the original story, she destroyed what she could not have, then killed herself to be buried with him. That was not the end of a woman who had ever truly chosen Yi. Housekeeper Wang pushed into the room and pulled Wei back to the present. Cheerfully, she told him that she and Meihui were going to make food and would wait for him to get up and dine. Wei agreed, rose, and headed for the walk-in closet. The painful question of Luo's loyalty gave way to a far more immediate mystery inside his own home. He emerged lazily in a long bathrobe. Wang was carrying dishes to the table, while a tall, curvaceous woman cooked with her back to him. Kawashima Mai still wore her snow-white kimono, broad sash, and Japanese wooden clogs. Even from behind, her straight posture and refined air suggested a woman accustomed to luxury, not someone who had simply arrived to work as a nanny. Kawashima's instincts were those of a top-tier expert. She sensed the gaze on her back, spun in an instant, and locked eyes with Wei. Her delicate, sculpted face only deepened his disbelief. A woman who maintained herself this perfectly had come to be a nanny. When something looked this abnormal, he decided something sinister had to be hiding underneath. Could she be a fake, and what was her purpose? Kawashima heard every unspoken word. At the table, housekeeper Wang cared for Wei with practiced devotion. Rice, soup, and selected dishes, every detail handled before he could ask. But she had already taken a liking to the pretty new nanny as well. Again and again, she added food to Kawashima's bowl, more meat to help her grow, then vegetables for balance. Every meal mattered, Wang insisted. Kawashima's movements stopped. Wang urged her not to space out, and after a strange look, Kawashima managed a quiet thank you. She had lived in cold isolation at the top from the day she was born. No one dared approach her, much less place food in her bowl. This ordinary, familial gesture felt utterly new. She lowered her gaze and began eating slowly, one bite at a time. Kawashima offered the household an austere compliment. The rice was good. Wang's face lit up. If it tasted good, she should eat more. There would be plenty of opportunities, Wang promised, for her to spend time with the young master in the future. Kawashima kept eating, but the remark marked a quiet change on the other side of the table. Housekeeper Wang was no longer thinking of Meihui as merely temporary help. Housekeeper Wang at first wanted only a part-time nanny for a few days. Now she saw someone of Wei's generation who could inherit her place. Why not train Meihui to care for the young master for life? That hope explained every attentive gesture. Spend a lifetime as Wei Tianci's nanny? Kawashima found nothing funny in that idea. Her plan had not changed. Locate the surveillance hard drive, deal with Wei, and disappear. She ate a few more bites, set down her bowl, and announced that she was finished. Kawashima fetched a towel, then attacked the living room with suspicious precision. Tables, cabinets, and anything movable received her attention. No corner escaped. The towel sold the disguise. Her radar-like eyes performed the real work, filtering every possible hiding place for the hard drive. Wang was delighted. Meihui had already tidied the lawn and garden, washed vegetables, cooked, cleaned the kitchen, and now conquered the living room. At this rate, she would inspect every corner of the villa in one day. Wang heard dedication. Wei heard something else. Could she be a master thief? Wei wondered whether his wealth had made him a target. Pretending to wipe the table, Kawashima narrowed her eyes. He was wrong about the motive, but disturbingly close about the deception. This playboy had identified most of the truth in an instant. Wang still saw only an earnest girl whose one misfortune was a missing smiling nerve. Soon Kawashima sat on a small stool with Wei's dirty clothes. She whispered that today's humiliation would be repaid 100-fold, then scrubbed as if the fabric were Wei himself. Boxers ripped. Kawashima's heart lurched. A moment later, she stood before Wei and Wang with a perfectly calm face and reported that she had torn the young master's pants. Only her nimble toes, clenching and releasing beneath her, betrayed how much punishment she expected. The punishment never came. Wang smiled and insisted Meihui had merely worked too hard. Her judgment of the girl had been right. Wei waved away the loss with, "Out with the old, in with the new." Startled by their kindness yet again, Kawashima could only nod. And Wei stood and changed the subject. Kawashima was coming with him to the romantic planning company to discuss business. He frowned at her kimono and told her to change because it drew too much attention. She gave a quiet acknowledgement and headed for her maid quarters. When Kawashima emerged, Wang's eyes lit up. The white kimono was gone. Red high heels and a tight black dress now framed Kawashima's perfectly proportioned figure. With the conspicuous nanny costume replaced by an equally striking modern look, she joined Wei for the ride. News that young Master Wei was bringing business electrified Bei Dan. She assembled the company's executives and waited in the rain. The moment the Rolls-Royce appeared, the entire group advanced with umbrellas, eager to receive the wealthy patron before he had even stepped outside. Bei Dan personally opened the rear door with a beaming welcome. Her executives answered in unison. "Welcome, young Master Wei." Wei stepped from the Rolls-Royce as though such ceremonies were ordinary, and Bei Dan immediately positioned her umbrella above him. Bei Dan apologized that the weather was not cooperating. Hands in his pockets, Wei corrected her. Rain brought wealth, and had he not come to bring her money? The executives laughed, praised his culture, and competed to agree with a line none of them had thought of. As Wei strode ahead, he glanced sideways. Kawashima had finally left the car, but she followed silently behind the entourage with no umbrella, letting the rain soak her black dress. His confident pace stopped. For a moment, the money, praise, and waiting executives ceased to matter. He took the umbrella straight from Bei Dan's hand. Then, instead of continuing toward the company, he strolled back through the rain and raised it over Kawashima. Before the watching executives, the wealthy young master chose to share his shelter with the silent woman following behind. Kawashima stiffened beneath the shared umbrella. No man had ever stood this close. Killing intent flashed through her eyes before she remembered that she was supposed to be Meihui, Wei's harmless new nanny. She forced the danger from her face and quietly insisted that the rain did not frighten her. Wei dismissed her protest and rested an elbow on her delicate shoulder, drawing her into his stride. Kawashima nearly struck him on instinct. Instead, she endured her first such touch and studied him strangely. Was this what movies meant when a man took care of a woman? Upstairs, Wei's wealth made every extravagant idea possible. Bei Dan helped finalize the sequence. A candlelit dinner with Mayu aboard a Huangpu River cruise, fireworks over the water, and the tallest building blazing with 4 enormous words. "And Mayu, I love you." The atmosphere had to be perfect. One obstacle survived the meeting. Fireworks were banned throughout Shanghai, and even Bei Dan could not obtain them. On the way home, Wei called Boss Yu of Huangting Spa, a man connected everywhere in the city. Boss Yu opened with an absurd question about domestic or imported goods, but Wei was calling to collect an old promise. When he needed help, Boss Yu would go all out. During the ride back, the new nanny calmly confirmed her name, Kawashima Mai. Pride surfaced despite her disguise. That name commanded respect among Japanese swordsmen. Wei's reaction was the opposite of admiration. His thoughts immediately identified her as the Kawashima family's secret heir and a late-stage heroine destined for Yifan. Only a handful of people knew the S-class secret of her succession, yet Wei knew it and spoke silently of a future she had never heard of. Kawashima wondered whether he could deduce the past and predict what came next. Her long indifferent heart came alive. Whatever his intentions, she desperately wanted to hear more. Wei reached exactly the wrong conclusion. If Kawashima was one of Yifan's later heroines, keeping her nearby could knock the original plot off course. Better to find an excuse and send her away. He addressed her as Meihui and gently began describing how strange the house felt now that housekeeper Wang had moved out. And Wei asked whether she could keep him company while he slept. At her stunned question, he put on a greedy stare and explained that they would merely lie side by side. She could leave after he fell asleep because he was afraid of the dark. Inside, he congratulated himself on making the trap obvious. Kawashima had every reason to reject him. She also had one overwhelming reason to stay. Every moment beside Wei might reveal another secret about her future, so she accepted. Wei's smug expectation collapsed. He had been spouting nonsense to force her away. How had this proud, untouchable woman dared to agree? Hours after meeting, master and servant lay openly on the same bed. Neither had changed from their daytime clothes. There were no blankets, and the bedroom lights remained glaringly on to restrain the embarrassment. For Kawashima, whatever explanations she gave herself, this was the first time she had ever shared a bed with a man. Wei's excellent eyesight only made the situation worse. He had expected a martial artist to have rough skin, yet Kawashima's small feet looked snow-white, smooth, and softly rosy. Better, he thought, than a peeled egg. Hearing every shameless comparison, Kawashima flushed with shy anger and immediately curled her legs away. Still offended, Kawashima rolled onto her side to face Wei. The movement sent her fragrance toward him. His thoughts immediately complained about how much perfume she must have used and why merely turning over produced such a wave of scent. Overwhelmed by the closeness, Wei quickly rolled away and presented her with his back. Still awake with his back to Kawashima, Wei Tianci silently cursed at his own success. He had only tried to drive her away before she disrupted the original plot. Somehow, that plan had ended with the two of them sharing his bed. Wei resorted to counting sheep. 1, 2, 3, 4. Kawashima's expression shifted with every number. Did the villa contain sheep? The mighty female Sword King could decipher deadly threats, yet this ordinary sleep trick left her genuinely confused. Kawashima finally asked the obvious question. If the young master feared the dark, why was he turning his back on her? His sheep counting ruined, Wei gave up on sleep and rolled over. Suddenly, they were staring straight into each other's eyes. At that distance, Wei privately marveled that the top-tier Sword King carried two large treasures no one could control. Kawashima stiffened. One treasure had to be the cicada wing scimitar hidden at her waist, but what could the second possibly be? Wei casually asked why a woman with such good prospects in Japan had come to Shanghai for work. The question sounded idle, but his purpose was not. Since neither of them could sleep, he intended to probe the mysterious nanny's bottom line. Wei's thoughts supplied an answer more terrible than anything Kawashima expected. In the original story, she barely qualified as a female lead and was the least favored one. Yifan felt affection for the others. With her, he used a skilled killer as a disposable mission pawn. Future grew uglier. When Yifan failed to gather enough women with Purian energy, he would force Kawashima to fill the missing place. Whether the process killed her did not matter to him. The proud future head of the Kawashima family heard her own life dismissed as expendable. Kawashima's face turned cold as ice. She declared that her so-called friend had no redeeming qualities, that only the relationship between their elders gave him any value, and that he disgusted her. Wei was speechless. Hadn't Yifan and Kawashima been allies? When had their relationship become this terrible? Too lazy to untangle the contradiction, Wei suggested watching something interesting. He took a laptop from the bedside table, sat against the headboard, and patted the place beside him. Kawashima's expression shifted. She knew exactly what adult movies were and concluded that men were all alike. Wei answered her suspicion with a mysterious smile, then played something entirely proper, a heartwarming romance drama. Kawashima stared at his profile for a long moment. Her judgment of him quietly shifted, and she finally gave a soft agreement and stayed to watch. 2 hours slipped by. Wei fell asleep while still holding the laptop. Kawashima watched his peaceful profile, then gently lowered her head onto his shoulder. Guilty as a thief, she scarcely dared to breathe while she remained there and finished the entire romance alone. When the film ended, Kawashima whispered that she was returning to her room. Wei did not answer. She climbed from the bed, placed the laptop on the bedside table, and remembered both assignments: retrieve the hard drive, then take out Wei Tianci. The first was easy. She unplugged the surveillance USB and pocketed it. And Kawashima raised her hand and summoned the cicada wing scimitar. The secret blade hovered over the sleeping Wei. She had come here to eliminate him, yet her arm remained raised for a long, impossible moment. The female Sword King did not strike. Kawashima might earn the name Heartless Sword King by taking every head in one merciless stroke. Her hand was so fast that no survivor had ever described her scimitar. Yet now that secret blade hung above a sleeping Wei Tianci, and for the first time, she hesitated. One day beside Wei felt to Kawashima like 10 years lived together. She knew she would carry that feeling for the rest of her life. She simply could not strike. With one sharp motion, she put the scimitar away, turned from the bed, and shut the door behind her without looking back. Wei had not lost the surveillance drive by accident. In his private reasoning, he counted it as a gift to the woman who had served as his nanny. If Kawashima returned with evidence Yifan desperately needed, she would arrive not as a helpless refugee, but as someone who had earned real credit. In the original plot, Kawashima family infighting stripped Mai of her power and drove her to Shanghai. Yifan hid her, then treated that rescue as permanent superiority. He used her like a subordinate, scolding her whenever he wished. Advancing the drive's recovery could spare her that fate, and Wei considered that a good deed. Drive reached Yifan, but Kawashima did not fall into the dependent role the original story assigned her. He was left stunned by her distance. He urged her not to overthink anything and told her to settle at his villa first, presenting his concern as though she needed his protection. Kawashima answered that she needed none of his concern. She said goodbye, crossed the threshold, and vanished from Yi's villa in a few effortless leaps. Watching her disappear, Yi narrowed his eyes. She knew little of Shanghai, and he refused to believe she had anywhere else to stay. At sunset, Wei woke to his alarm. And Mayu's birthday appointment at the Bund was that evening, and the baby's breath fireworks were still waiting at Huangting Spa. Kawashima had been assigned to collect them, but after taking the drive, Wei assumed his unusually beautiful nanny had disappeared for good. Wei dressed in the walk-in closet, took the Ford Raptor's keys, and headed out with one hand in his pocket. Halfway across the living room, he stopped. There was movement in the kitchen. He backed up 2 steps and peered through the doorway, expecting almost anyone except the woman he found there. The woman wore simple floral clothes, open-toed slippers, and an apron. She looked far more like a nanny than Kawashima had the day before. Then Wei noticed the small, flawless feet he privately called food-grade jade. Recognition struck at once. The domestic woman in his kitchen was the female Sword King herself. Kawashima turned as naturally as any housekeeper and asked whether Wei wanted noodles. His inner response was far less polite. Out loud, he demanded to know why she was still there. Kawashima only looked confused. She had been hired as his nanny, she reminded him. Of course she was there. And Kawashima pointed through the villa toward the Ford Raptor. She had already collected the birthday fireworks from Huangting Spa and loaded them into the pickup bed. Wei had been preparing to solve that exact problem himself. Now he could only stare, speechless, while she pretended nothing unusual had happened. Wei knew Kawashima was playing innocent, so he answered with an equally false smile and let the nanny act continue. She returned to the stove and prepared something housekeeper Wang said he liked. The arrangement was absurd. Japan's ruthless female sword king, wearing an apron in his kitchen as though she had always belonged there. Wei's thoughts protested that this noble, merciless sword king had no business pretending to be a housewife. If she wanted to serve anyone, the original plot said it should be Yi Fan. Hearing him, Kawashima reached the opposite conclusion. That scoundrel had no qualifications to become her husband. Even Wei's supposed omniscience could be mistaken. As butter filled the kitchen with its aroma, Wei's resistance weakened. He requested a sirloin steak, medium well. Kawashima told him it was in the second refrigerator. Hunger settled the argument. If she insisted on staying, he would let her. Her original appearance came much later in the book, so he judged the plot safe for now. Kawashima caught the crucial words in Wei's thoughts. Original book in progress. A woman capable of becoming the female sword king was not slow to understand. At last, the fragments aligned. This world followed some written story, and Wei kept pushing people toward prescribed roles because he had a task to complete. 1 hour after the kitchen conversation, Kawashima Mai's conjecture met its proof. Now wearing high heels instead of her villa slippers, she drove Wei Tianci and the loaded fireworks toward Riverside Plaza at the Bund, where he was due to meet Mayu. Wei's mind immediately wandered where he thought no one could follow. If the plot allowed a free choice and would not rank first, he admired Ning Xingruo's long legs, then decided even Kawashima was preferable. Beauty meant little in a cast where every female lead was beautiful. And his comparison became shamelessly specific. Kawashima at least had what he called food-grade jade feet, while a distinguishing advantage was her figure. Kawashima glanced down at her high-heeled foot pressing the accelerator. Speechless, she felt a faint blush rise into her cheeks. Half an hour later, the Raptor reached the Bund. Wei had bade Dan planning company personnel unload the super fireworks and begin their preparations. With that surprise safely in professional hands, he sent Kawashima back and walked alone into Riverside Plaza to find it. At the center of the plaza, Wei finally saw Mayu and could not hide his surprise. She had dressed far more elaborately than expected. A tight wine-red camisole dress set off her naturally fair skin and carefully framed the slim figure she had prepared for this meeting. Had fought through a hard entrepreneurial road to become a woman with both beauty and a career. She had every reason to be proud, until Wei dealt that pride a brutal blow. His affection could blaze during a task, then vanish once the performance was finished. Worse, he already had an equally exceptional fiancée. He replayed every contradiction. At Ankang's press conference, Wei descended with a declaration that the rest of his life was hers, then offered a dogtail grass ring. When she hurried to the police station to apologize, he ignored her and assumed she cared about Yi. Later, his inner voice practically begged her to leave his Mercedes. Anger, grievance, and helplessness had finally driven her to send the birthday invitation on impulse. She still could not name what she wanted from Wei. She only knew she had dressed beautifully and kept the appointment, even while expecting him to repeat the dogtail ring humiliation in some new form. Before he could settle into the moment, a noisy procession rolled across the plaza. She frowned and prepared to suggest leaving. Wei stared past her in disbelief. Yi Fan had arrived at the head of a drum and bugle band, his white-gloved driver beside him and the entire crowd turning to watch. He addressed her as though he had arrived to rescue her. He had recovered the hard drive, he announced, so she no longer needed to compromise herself by interacting with Wei. Wei had lost the leverage to threaten him. Moved by what he called her good sense, Yi promised to protect her from now on. And was stunned. She had chosen to interact with Wei for Yi's sake. The idea was inexplicable. She had already scolded Yi severely, yet he still clung to her and rewrote her motives around himself. Was he unable to understand, or did he enjoy being rejected? Beside her, Wei nearly laughed aloud. Turned coldly on Wei and delivered his real challenge. Every dining, drinking, and entertainment venue on the Bund had been booked under his control. He claimed to have spent 500 million solely to give an unforgettable birthday. In front of the crowd and blaring band, the message was clear. Wei's ordinary options had just been bought away. Fan pressed the advantage of his 500 million blockade. If Wei had any sense, he should leave. Otherwise, Mayu would spend her birthday eating at a roadside stall. And answered only with a self-deprecating look. Did you truly imagine Wei had ever taken her birthday seriously? He pointed to the ceremonial band and claimed the Bund's bosses had arranged it to thank him. His white-gloved driver gave the signal. Drums and gongs crashed into life while an MC boomed out birthday wishes for fortune and longevity. The surrounding crowd exchanged baffled looks. It was painfully old-fashioned. When the noise ended, Yi demanded that and choose her date. Follow him, and every shop on the bund would serve only the two of them. Follow Wei, and every door would close. To Yi, it was a crude but effective contest of money. Around them, the crowd began gossiping about the fortune he had spent to steal another man's girl. Wei refused to answer an ultimatum with another price tag. He gave in a confession instead. He would neither bully nor scold her. He would trust her, defend her when others hurt her, share her happiness, and coax her through every unhappy moment. To him, she would always be the most beautiful woman and the only one in his heart. For one breath, the entire plaza went deathly still. Then applause thundered around them. People shouted that An should marry him and called Wei a treasure, and barely heard the crowd. She was repeating his promises inside her own heart. He would protect her, spoil her, share her joy, and comfort her sorrow. Wei's hand caressed An's smooth cheek, deepening the romantic picture for everyone watching. His private attention, however, was already on Yi. Was the hero angry enough yet? After the next spectacle, Yi needed to report him to the police exactly as the plot required. Hearing that hidden calculation, An's face abruptly stiffened. Wei rounded on Yi and made his verdict loud enough for the plaza. This was how one approached love. He had marched in with an ultimatum and tried to force An into dinner through exclusion. Was he celebrating her birthday or fighting over territory? The final word landed with contempt. Pathetic. Forced himself to calm down. He warned An that Wei was a practiced playboy, then offered her the grand dinner and gifts he had prepared. His eyes betrayed a different appetite. He was counting on getting her drunk and taking whatever intimacy he could. The extreme yang divine art prevented him from sleeping with a pure yin woman, but it did not make his intentions innocent. Before Yi's control of the bund could settle the matter, a large luxury cruise ship transformed the contest. The crowd whispered that An's birthday had drawn jealous rivals and now a vessel worth multiple billions. Surely both men had to feel the pressure. But for Wei, the ship was not pressure. It was the plan. Wei wrapped an arm around An's waist and smiled gently. They were boarding for a candlelight dinner. He led her forward before Yi could recover. At the gangway, the captain and staff called out together, "Welcome, boss. Welcome, president," and under the crowd's gaze and walked beside Wei step by step onto the ship. Cruise ship slowly pulled away. Only then did the dumbfounded crowd understand. Wei was the super-rich tycoon who had planned a date aboard the multi-billion vessel from the beginning. He had spent a fortune monopolizing the ground. Wei had never intended to use it. Phones rose from every direction to record the ship carrying An away. He watched Wei's arm around An as the ship carried them away, his teeth clenched hard enough to show. His white-gloved driver hurried to protect his pride. Perhaps Wei held some leverage over An. Perhaps that was the only reason she had gone with him. It was an excuse without evidence, but for the moment, it gave Yi somewhere to hide from the truth. As the cruise ship carried An Mayu farther away, Yi Fan seized on his driver's excuse. Wei Tianci had a history of using leverage, so perhaps An had been forced aboard. Better yet, Yi insisted she had shown concern for him before. She must still like him. The white-gloved driver agreed at once, privately wondering how someone so childish had become so rich. Board the cruise ship and watched the staff finish a candlelight dinner prepared entirely for her birthday. Confusion softened into wonder. With bright eyes, she asked Wei why he had gone to such lengths. He smiled and answered lightly, perhaps it was because he loved her. Wei's inner voice told a harsher story. He did not know whether he would live to celebrate An's next birthday. If the plot collapsed, both of them could die. If it held, she was still destined to become Yi Fan's woman. He was only an actor cherishing the present. Hearing every thought and realized how little hope Wei believed they had, and silently swore she would never choose Yi. Wei slipped an arm around An and turned her toward the shrinking square. He called down that, when it came to creating atmosphere, he was only a little brother and should send his drum and bugle corps home. Then Wei led into the bow. Fireworks spread across the bund's sky while Shanghai Center's romantic characters glowed in the distance. His carefully prepared birthday spectacle had only begun. His heart raced. She turned, rose onto her toes, and gathered enough courage to kiss Wei. Then his inner voice cut through the moment. He had seen the fireworks, so now he should call the police and not disappoint him. And froze. Wei simply took her hand and suggested they sit down. Her fragile burst of courage vanished before he ever noticed it. Michelin chefs sent out course after course of a Western feast, and ate slowly, stealing bright-eyed looks across the table. Wei could not understand what had happened to her usual cold arrogance. If she kept staring, how was he supposed to eat? Hearing that too, An's ears reddened. She immediately lowered her gaze, leaving Wei even more baffled. From shore, Yi watched Wei and exchanged toasts in the middle of the river. Rage finally overwhelmed him. He dialed 110 and reported fireworks all over the bund, covering the sky. The offender, he added, was enjoying a candlelight dinner on a cruise ship. It was precisely the call Wei had been waiting for. Porting the fireworks was not enough. He called Luo Yu and demanded the location of the power distribution box for Shanghai Center, the tallest building at the bund. Luo frowned and asked what he meant. He stared at the romantic characters across the facade and answered plainly. He wanted to cut power to the big screen. Luo's technical information gave Yi an actionable target, Line 2B in Shanghai Center's power distribution system. Following that lead, Yi made his way into the cramped electrical space with a pair of scissors. He believed he was about to disable one exterior screen and erase Wei's romantic message. He did not understand how much larger the response would become. Snip, Yi cut line 2B. The light dimmed noticeably and triumph surged through him. He had succeeded. Let Wei try to keep being romantic now. Let him continue confessing without that glowing display. Crouched among the electrical equipment, Yi celebrated as if the matter were already over. At her keyboard, a sharp light entered Luo Yu's eyes. She typed, struck enter, and the whole sky went black. The outage swallowed the entire district. The golden bund, its dazzling night view, and every surrounding light vanished at once. Tourists erupted in confusion. Even Wei, still aboard the cruise ship within, was shocked by the sudden darkness. Once Luo saw the darkness outside, she pressed enter again. Power returned instantly. The bund blazed back to life as magnificently as before, and most tourists treated the few lost seconds as a bizarre interruption. The police did not. This was not equipment failure but deliberate interference. If someone could do it once, they could do it again. Officers rushed toward Shanghai Center while Yi remained inside. Lights had barely returned when the police response reached Shanghai Center. Officers poured from their vehicles, entered the tower in force, and headed straight for the power distribution center on the 68th floor. To them, the vanished district was no harmless technical failure. Inside the cramped room, Yi Fan was still trying to understand why the power had vanished and returned. He crouched beside the equipment and called Luo Yu again. Before he could get an answer, the door exploded inward. Armed officers flooded the room and trained their weapons on him. Hands on your head, get out, hurry! Yi frowned at the sheer number of officers. Wasn't this excessive? In his mind, he had only cut power to the exterior screen. The police gave him no room to argue. They swarmed him, locked his wrists in handcuffs, and marched him away. In the speeding police car, Yi complained that the arrest was absurdly dramatic. The young officer beside him answered that Yi was in serious trouble, possibly for at least a year. A man-made outage across an entire district was no minor switch being flipped. Yi scoffed and called the warning nonsense. Through the window, Yi spotted Wei Tianci on the cruise ship, calmly holding red wine in the river breeze. Why had the fireworks offender not been arrested? The officer answered with dry contempt. Should they swim out to get him? They would wait for the ship to dock, and compared with Yi's case, Wei's was a drop in the ocean. Captain Li Sha reached Wei by phone. He casually told her he was about to visit the police station and expected 15 days of detention for setting off the large firework at the bund. Li Sha's response was immediate and crisp. Absolutely not. Then she ended the call, leaving Wei staring at his phone. Cruise ship docked. Wei and Mayu stepped ashore side by side, followed by a long procession of staff, and still wore the wine-red dress from their birthday date. A waiting officer approached them politely and asked whether someone aboard had launched fireworks. Before Wei could answer, the women from the ship spoke over one another. Nobody had seen fireworks. A vessel this expensive could have burned. How would they dare risk it? Perhaps the report was mistaken. Wei stared at them, dismayed. He had worked all night to reach this exact moment, and they were ruining it. Wei stepped forward and cut through the excuses. A real man took responsibility for his actions. He declared that he had launched the Starry Sky firework, caused an uproar among the bund tourists, and deserved to be processed. Then he gave his name, Wei Tianci, and walked straight to the police car without looking back. From the back seat, Wei regarded the arrest as excellent progress. The sooner he was locked up, the sooner this portion of the plot would wrap. Once it ended, he could claim the system rewards. To everyone outside, he looked nobly accountable. Inwardly, he was simply protecting the route to his payoff. At the police station, the two cases finally met. Wei learned that Yi had caused the district-wide blackout and stared at him in disbelief. So that catastrophe had been Yi's doing. The man had to be crazy. Yi, still handcuffed, watched Wei's minor fireworks inquiry begin beside his own criminal interrogation. Once the main office learned Wei's identity, the atmosphere changed. Officers traded gossiping looks. Clerks and even leaders emerged from the inner room under the pretense of passing by. When their eyes met Wei's, they smiled kindly or nodded. Wei sat lazily and described the fireworks as if chatting with acquaintances. His expression darkened with every friendly glance. He was being scolded in handcuffs while Wei lounged nearby, discussing his offense like casual conversation. Then an officer brought Wei a cup of tea. That small courtesy broke his restraint. He roared that they had both committed offenses, so why was only he being targeted? He demanded to know why he wore handcuffs, why questioning had left his mouth dry, and why Wei alone received tea. He threatened to file a complaint. Ji Gang did not flinch. His answer was cold and simple. Wei Tianci had violated public security regulations. Yi Fan had committed a crime. Ji Gang did not soften the distinction. Of course, the two suspects were being treated differently. Wei faced a public security violation while Yi faced a criminal case. If Yi merely wanted tea, the station could provide that too. The answer left him handcuffed, furious, and no closer to sharing Wei's comfortable position. Wei added insult with perfect calm. Yi's blackout had not ruined the date at all. It had made his candlelit dinner with Mayu more atmospheric. He even clasped his hands and thanked him. Yi's fury briefly hardened into a cold smile as he searched for a more painful place to strike. He believed he had found Wei's weak point. Wei had staged a grand birthday celebration and been arrested because of it, yet she had not even come to see him. If she truly cared, Yi argued, she would be standing here now. In her heart, he declared, Wei carried no weight at all. Round the office, knowing glances passed between the officers. News that Wei had saved Captain Li Sha had spread through the department, and both of them were unmarried. Many colleagues had doubted that their fierce captain could compete with Mayu. But if he truly did not care, perhaps the female Tyrannosaurus finally had a chance. He mistook silence for pain and accused Wei of pretending to be brave. Wei dismissed him as a sparrow unable to understand a swan. In truth, Wei wished him were even colder. They could finish the performance, go home separately, and preserve the plot. The problem was that he had already sensed her feelings veering dangerously off course. And a cold female voice asked whether she could bail out the suspect. Every head turned, and Mayu entered slowly in the wine-red dress and diamond necklace from the birthday evening, carrying herself with the polished authority of a celebrity arrival. The timing alone demolished Yi's claim that she could not be bothered to come. He sprang up and welcomed An as his rescuer. He loudly reminded the officers that he owned Ankang shares and that An was his boss. Of course, she had to protect the company from the scandal and stock price damage of a jailed shareholder. Certain of his logic, he gave Wei a mocking salute before the whole room. Ji Gang rose to receive the high-profile visitor and asked for the specific reason she had come. An answered without hesitation. She wanted to bail out Mr. Wei Tianci, and she needed to know the requirements. The office froze. Yi's triumphant smile collapsed before his mock salute had even finished landing. Did not stop at asking for a procedural favor. She pressed forward with a willingness to shoulder the blame for Wei herself. To the officers, that was almost incomprehensible. A celebrated female president knew exactly what arrest or imprisonment could do to her reputation and company, yet she was still prepared to place herself between Wei and the consequences. The officer's hopeful theory about Captain Li Sha collapsed just as quickly as Yi's smile, and was not acting like a distant executive protecting a company. She was risking herself for Wei. Their new conclusion was mercilessly romantic, and Mayu had already given him her heart, and the treasure of their bureau might be left waiting on the shelf. He shouted that everyone knew and hated Wei. If she was protecting him now, there had to be another explanation. He demanded that the police treat the situation as a report. Wei must be coercing him through some unknown means, and the officers should investigate him thoroughly and give the public an answer. Forced his anger into a reassuring smile and appealed directly to An. This was a police station, he told her. She could reveal whatever leverage Wei held. The officers would protect her, and Wei could not cause trouble here. Then he urged her to be brave, as if her own decision could only be a cry for rescue. An's answer was immediate and furious. She ordered Yi to shut up, stop meddling in her affairs, and mind his own business. There was no hidden plea in her expression and no affection in the cold look she gave him. The rescue fantasy Yi had built for himself disintegrated in front of every officer. Unable to blame, Yi turned his burning rage on Wei. How much leverage did this bastard hold over her? Wei answered with an irritated glare rather than a defense. What was Yi shouting about? This was a police station. He should be serious. Once again, the supposed criminal mastermind sounded calmer and more respectable than the hero accusing him. Wei turned from the furious Yi fan to Mayu. One person acted, he told her, so one person should answer. He was a man capable of accepting responsibility. She was not going to exonerate him or derail the proceedings. Inside, Wei was nearly shouting. Why was in protecting the villain instead of her supposed dragon emperor husband? He was one step from finishing today's scene, and prison was non-negotiable. Outside, that panic looked like integrity. The office went silent. Color rose sharply in An's face. Wei had been arrested for celebrating her birthday. Why was it wrong for her to bear some responsibility? Offering had already exhausted the cold CEO's courage. Hearing him call Yi her destined husband only made the rejection sting worse. The proceedings continued with Wei and Yi still treated as suspects. The officers gave them a practical instruction. Their families could send sheets, quilt covers, and changes of clothes. Prison was no longer an abstract threat. They needed to prepare for actually staying there. For Yi, the instruction was humiliating. He had entered Shanghai alone, expecting to conquer it quickly. Becoming a security guard had failed, and buying shares to become a billionaire had changed nothing. Now the Dragon Emperor had somehow landed in prison. He had powerful Shanghai connections, but calling them now would advertise his disgrace, and money alone could not casually erase the matter. Wei had the opposite problem. His father would rage, his mother would worry, and asking his fiancée Ning Xingruo after confessing to An was unthinkable. The main door opened before either man solved the problem. Kawashima Mai entered with both hands in the pockets of a long gray trench coat. Black leather boots sharpened her cold silhouette. Her back was straight, her face stern, and even the officers reacted as if danger had arrived. He seized on her arrival. After everything Wei and An had done to his pride, the formidable goddess Meihui looked like a lifeline. He thanked her for her care with conspicuous warmth, pushing the words hard enough for the whole office, and especially Wei, to hear. Pushed further, with a deliberate glance toward Wei, he declared that because of Goddess Manhwa, he had no need to envy anyone. The officers exchanged impressed looks. A woman this noble and beautiful seemed worthy of any love words, and Yi believed he had reclaimed the room. Wei was delighted. He had apparently learned from his own love words and was finally beginning the proper story with Kawashima. Despite the day's deviations, the original direction might survive. Wei relaxed around one triumphant conclusion: stable. And Kawashima looked at Yi without expression and walked straight past him. The office froze again. He called after her, "Manhwa, he was over here," but she stopped before Wei. Under every watching eye, she calmly said she had brought Wei an inner garment to wear. Kawashima reached into her gray trench coat and produced a small cloth bag. The office erupted in whispers. Had this extraordinary woman really come to deliver clothes to Wei again? After Yi's extravagant declaration of affection, his supposed goddess was still caring for someone else. He could endure the whispers no longer. Trembling with anger, he demanded to know what Kawashima was doing and what relationship she had with Wei. Then he shouted at her to speak, as though sheer volume could force the promised old connection back into existence. Kawashima answered with perfect indifference. She was merely Master Tianci's nanny. The office went dead still. This noble female sword king, the goddess he had invoked as his romantic triumph, had just placed herself in Wei's service. The officers had thought the two men were tied after today's romantic displays. Now they silently revised the score. Yi 0, Wei 2. Yi's thoughts dissolved into questions. What had happened to the ruthless sword king, the friendship between their elders, and the story he had expected? Kawashima ignored every stare and drew out a close-fitting, long-sleeved garment. Wei frowned. Her public provocation was dangerous. In the original plot, Yi conquered her by force. Yet she simply handed the garment to Wei and ordered him to put it on. Wei dryly asked whether Kawashima had chosen the size by measuring it against her own figure. Even so, he changed quickly. The inner garment was the cicada wing armor, fitted close across his torso and arms. And Wei noticed something absurd. The armor was still warm. Kawashima's mouth twitched, but she never admitted that she had removed it immediately before entering. Only when she saw it safely on him did she release a quiet breath. Her concern was practical as well as personal. The cicada wing armor resisted blades and guns, and it had saved Kawashima several times across the years. If it could protect her, it was more than enough to keep Wei safe through detention. Protection did not change the official outcome. Both Wei and Yi were detained. As he was led away, he fixed Kawashima with a resentful stare and warned that she would regret this. She met the threat without expression, turned, and departed. At 8 that evening, the two men entered prison and learned they would not even see their cells yet. Every detainee had been gathered in the large multimedia study room to watch the 9 o'clock live broadcast honoring Shanghai's 10 most touching figures. Ceremony was not optional entertainment. The prison called it moral education. Everyone had to take notes while watching and then produce a 1,000-word reflection. Wei's prison entry had delivered him straight into homework before he could reach a cell. He walked at the front by instinct. The master of the Dragon Emperor Palace was accustomed to leading. Otherwise, someone might mistake another man for the boss. But today his face was sour, and he glared at every prisoner who met his eyes as if he wanted to devour them. Wei entered, and the room instantly came alive. Prisoners recognized one of Shanghai's 4 young masters. Some had even drunk on his money at bars, remembering how casually he paid everyone's tab. Hands rose in greeting from every direction. Their enthusiasm had several layers. A rich ally could mean better food and drink inside. A favor now might become an honest job after release. And even without either reward, Wei's well-traveled boasts and scandalous celebrity stories promised excellent entertainment. With the whole room waiting, Wei raised a hand. "Brothers, good evening." The answer came back from every row, "Good evening, young Master Wei," followed by thunderous applause. He stood beside that celebration with an ugly expression. Why did Wei seize attention everywhere he went? Yifan was still seething when the other prisoners eagerly cleared an entire row for Wei Tianci. Wei accepted their hospitality without ceremony, stretched out across the seats, and fell sound asleep almost at once, as if jail were merely another place he owned. Study room door flew open. Captain Li Sha strode in with a group of prison guards, mounted the podium, and swept the rows with a lightning-cold stare. The lively room died instantly. Every prisoner knew the feared police captain called the female Tyrannosaurus. Li's face remained cold, but her thoughts were anything but calm. Wei was supposed to be here. Where was that bastard? Her gaze moved from row to row, passing straight over the sleeping figure hidden near the back. Yifan suddenly stood. In his most righteous voice, he announced that he possessed important clues about a case involving Wei Tianci. Li gave him one cold glance, ordered him outside, and turned away. He followed, barely concealing his delight. Li was perfect leverage, incorruptible, passionate against evil, and famous as the nemesis of science. She had arrested Wei at Huanting without hesitation. Surely she had no interest in that playboy. He pointed out that everyone was waiting upright, except Wei, who was asleep. He stayed by the railing with a sinister smile and looked up at the round moon. What a good night. Inside, however, Li strode directly to the second-to-last row and found Wei sleeping exactly as reported. Li had searched everywhere for this bastard, yet he could sleep through a live honor worth far more than any playboy reputation. Wei had saved her life. Today she would repay that debt. She seized him, pulled him upright, and ordered him to come quickly. He caught Wei's large hand and ran. He stared in astonishment at the small hand pulling him, then thought only one thing, soft and smooth. Li heard every word. Her cheeks reddened. She released him at once and told him to follow her to the prison office. He greeted them with an ugly smile. He reminded Wei that confession earned leniency and resistance earned severity, then advised him not to make Captain Li use force. Wei's prison entry mission was almost complete, so he merely replied, "Egg Emperor, you needn't worry." Back in the study room, the head guard took command. The ceremony, he explained, was meant to strengthen the wrongdoer's morals. Whether inside prison or outside it, they must uphold traditional virtues, accept responsibility, and build proper social standards. The head guard suddenly raised his voice. Did they understand? Every expression in the room changed. "Understood," the prisoners thundered together, then repeated it until their unified answer echoed through the study room. In the warden's office, 3 people stared at one another. The warden sat behind his desk with a growing headache. Li stood before him with an unfriendly expression. Wei, the cause of the crisis, lounged lazily on the reception sofa. Li demanded that Wei leave with her now. He was one of Shanghai's top 10 touching figures. The ceremony was live, and he had to be on stage in 1 hour. If he failed to appear, she asked, who would accept responsibility for the broadcast? Warden smiled bitterly. Li might fear an absent honoree, but he would be missing a detainee. Who would answer for that? Li refused to yield. Special circumstances required special handling. Wei had only set off fireworks, criticism, education, and a fine should settle it. Why hold him so tightly? Warden's bitter smile ended the argument. Even he lacked authority to release Wei. The decision belonged to Police Chief Ning above him, and he looked at Li as if daring her to challenge that chain of command. Li's face flushed red. She demanded the chief's number and pulled out her phone, ready to call immediately. Once her temper ignited, rank meant nothing. She would have argued with the King of Heaven himself. Wei could only stare. Wasn't Li Sha supposed to be the selfless female Tyrannosaurus? Yet she was trying to drag him to the top 10 touching figures ceremony while her destined dragon emperor remained in the study room. How was this favoritism remotely correct? At the same time, Luo Yu drove into Tianxing Group's underground garage, abandoned the car, and ran for the elevator. When she reached the executive floor and saw light beneath Ning Xingruo's office door, relief hit her. The CEO was still working. Luo pushed inside and called, "CEO Ning." Ning looked up in surprise and recognized her from the brief image she had once seen on Wei's phone. In person, the black-clad recluse was even more striking. Flowing hair, a tiny waist, and slender, jade-like fingers. Ning quickly made one point clear. Surfaces could lie. Everyone believed Tianci loved Mayu deeply, but that public pursuit was nonsense. Luo nodded hard. She too had heard the hidden truth, that he pursued Mayu only because some mission required it. Luo even managed a rare smile. Because Ning was Tianci's official fiancé, she had been Luo's first thought when disaster struck. Then urgency returned. Tianci had been taken to the police station, and the hacker who commanded the virtual world could do almost nothing about it in reality. Ning's heart sank, but her voice stayed level. "Don't panic. Tell me everything in order." Luo obeyed, including how she had baited Yifan. Ning understood before the account was finished. Tianci had allowed the tip-off so Yifan would cause trouble, call the police, and advance the mission. Ning gave Luo a long, meaningful look. This quiet hacker had not held back at all when using Yifan. That ruthlessness was valuable. Properly cultivated, Luo could become a vital partner when the time came to deal with him again. One point still troubled Luo. Didn't Tianci have an immensely powerful father? Why should setting off fireworks be enough to put him in custody when similar offenses seemed so minor? Her questions made the problem plain. This required influence in the physical world, not another feat of hacking. Soon Luo was driving while Ning rested in the passenger seat, eyes closed. Luo's gothic severity had somehow softened into the manner of a rookie following an admired senior. Ning's thought was simpler. If Tianci could enter prison for his mission, she could get him out for love. The car stopped at an influential family's suburban home. Ning strode inside with purpose, Luo close behind and still stealing admiring glances. Only then did Ning explain their destination. This was her second uncle's house, and he was the police chief of the Bund district. Luo understood at once. The Ning family was a prominent, wealthy clan, otherwise its princess, and the Wei family's young master would never have been engaged. Their match in social status was no decoration. Tonight, it gave Ning direct access to the official controlling Wei's fate. Ning presented the relevant facts of Wei's case to her second uncle. Ning Chengsheng listened from a grand armchair, imposing and stern, every inch the powerful official. Luo stayed behind Ning as the rescue request finally reached the man who could decide what happened next. Ning Chengsheng's sternness finally softened for his niece. Wei's fireworks were a trivial mistake, he judged. The real problem was the name attached to them, Wei. Releasing such a prominent young master without justification would invite trouble. Still, he gave Ning the opening she needed. Wei could leave if they provided him a proper way out. Before Ning could explain her answer, the chief's phone rang. One glance at the number made him shake his head. It was the department's female Tyrannosaurus, Li Sha. Her call arrived at exactly the right moment. The official route and the women's rescue effort had converged, giving Wei's release both authorization and a defensible destination. Short while later, Luo drove Ning away, stealing admiring glances until Ning teased her about having a flower on her face. Luo called her amazing. One sentence had freed Brother Tianci. Ning refused the sole credit. Luo supplied the tip, Ning opened senior channels, and Li built the reasoning that made the exception legitimate. Ning added one final correction. None of their maneuvering would matter without Wei's own excellence. He had sacrificed himself to save another person. That fact made every channel and argument credible. Luo heard the affection beneath Ning's calm words. On impulse, she tested whether the two women could call themselves sisters, shifting their alliance from strategy towards something personal. Way out, Li Sha sounded him out about gentle women. His spoken confusion hid a shamelessly simple answer. He liked every pretty one. Li heard it and glared, yet felt an embarrassing spark of happiness. Then she named the other two women on the chief's call, Ning Xingruo and Luo Yu, both of whom had been running around for him. Wei's amusement faded. How had those two become a team? Ning was an imperious queen with a demon-sharp mind. Luo was a gloomy, scheming, top-tier hacker. Together they were the big and small jokers, a combination capable of crushing anyone foolish enough to oppose them. Li watched his expression change and found herself increasingly irritated. He abruptly declared that saving him had nothing to do with romance. Had he rescued anyone else, she would have worked just as hard. Compared with risking his life for a stranger, setting off fireworks was insignificant. Her argument was principled and sound, but the speed and sharpness of the denial only made the feeling beneath it more obvious. Wei solemnly agreed. Captain Li lived for her career and the safety of Shanghai's citizens. Everything she did came from public spirit. He would never be conceited enough to imagine she wanted him for his looks. Beneath that flawless praise, however, his thoughts screamed the opposite kind of alarm. Romance with the female Tyrannosaurus? He valued his survival too much. Destination was no ordinary appointment. A red carpet crossed an auditorium overflowing with flowers, and an old-fashioned white ceramic cup waited before every seat. Wei stared at the formal display. The guests who recognized him stared back. What was Shanghai's notorious playboy doing at a scene devoted to civic virtue, and why was a high-ranking policewoman leading him straight to the front row? Once they sat, Li finally explained the privilege. Every award winner belonged in the first row and could bring one companion. Wei had not merely been released for convenience. He was one of the people being honored tonight. The same act that saved Li's life had transformed his detention problem into an officially celebrated public service. He announced that because time was short, she would serve as Wei's assistant. Her earlobes turned faintly red. The official rule did not actually say assistant. It allowed each winner to bring family. Calling herself that beside Wei felt too strange, so she quietly rewrote the category. Her professional excuse fooled no one who could see her face. Li stuffed a prepared acceptance speech into Wei's hand and ordered him to memorize it quickly. She had assumed the famous playboy must be uneducated, so naturally she had written one for him. Wei stared at the note in speechless disbelief. Did she think he was some child prodigy who could memorize an entire speech on the spot? The auditorium lights dimmed. Cameramen, assistants, lighting technicians, and directors hurried into position while solemn music rolled across the flower-decorated venue. The male and female hosts stepped beneath the stage lights with microphones in hand. The noisy crowd fell quiet at once. Female host welcomed everyone to the annual Moving Shanghai Awards. Even the summer heat, she said, felt insignificant beside the warmth created by these 10 people. Her partner took over. Their deeds and unforgettable faces had become part of Shanghai's memory and made the city better. And Wei's own photograph appeared. He looked sheepish rather than proud. Everyone here saw a hero, but he remembered the less noble truth. When he saved Captain Li Sha, his first concern had been preventing the plot from collapsing. Beside these people, one rescue born from calculation felt painfully small. First recipient was centenarian physician Meng Zhuzhou. 70 years earlier, after completing his studies, he had committed himself to hospital work. Scalpel in hand, he spent half a lifetime healing the wounded and rescuing the dying. Even reaching retirement age at 70 had not erased that devotion. Stunned by the comparison, Wei turned toward Li. Their eyes met. She offered no speech and no easy reassurance, only silent encouragement. Wei understood it anyway. He forced a small smile, faced forward again, and continued watching. Male host announced fire hero Jin Jiefeng. A huge blaze had engulfed an apartment building late at night, and Jin entered that sea of fire 4 separate times. Family, friends, neighbors, strangers, he kept returning until every resident was out. Not one person in the building died. Victory carried a terrible price. Jin had suffered burns across his entire body and was still in intensive care. Earlier photographs showed a slightly chubby man in farmer-style clothes, smiling almost foolishly. The final image replaced that warmth with a blackened body on a hospital bed, surrounded by IV tubes. Because Jin could not attend, staff escorted his plain-looking wife, Ms. Zhang, onto the stage. She seemed lost under so many eyes. Then, awkwardly and with a stutter, she delivered old Jin's message. If the fire happened again, he would still save them. The auditorium went completely silent. Then the silence broke. Applause crashed through the auditorium, so loud it seemed capable of lifting the roof. The female host's eyes reddened. Jin's wife had offered only one plain sentence, but it proved that his courage was not a lucky impulse. Even knowing the cost, he would choose it again. Now the hosts turned to the third recipient. They described Wei's sudden appearances and rescues as the true colors of a hero, then invited him to the stage. Applause rose again, warm, immediate, and enthusiastic. After Meng's lifetime of service and Jin's 4 journeys into fire, Wei had nowhere left to hide from the comparison. Presentation screen complicated his entrance. Li had downloaded photographs from the internet without considering how they would look together. Wei in fine clothes, riding horses, shooting arrows, skiing, golfing, and traveling the world. After the physicians, firefighters, and other civic heroes, this luxurious young master's album left the audience visibly taken aback. The video played. Wei leaped to save someone, took the impact himself, flew through the air, and crashed down hard. The audience's hesitation vanished. Applause climbed louder than before. A wealthy young man surrounded by luxury had still sacrificed his own safety for another person, and that contradiction made the act feel rarer, not smaller. Under every eye in the auditorium, Wei climbed the stage step by step. The refined young gentleman accepted his trophy and approached the microphone. He began simply, "Good evening, friends. I'm Wei Tianci." Then, instead of polishing his image, he named it himself, a famous Shanghai playboy and one of the legendary 4 young masters. Wei Tianci continued without breaking stride. Standing beneath the ceremony lights, trophy in hand, he admitted that the honor genuinely overwhelmed him. The audience answered with encouraging applause. Wei bowed in thanks, but when he straightened, he turned his attention to the rows of reporters and offered them an unexpected apology. Protocol demanded that he raise the trophy for tomorrow's photographs. Instead, Wei slowly moved it behind his back. He told the startled reporters that he could not pose beside the other 9 winners on the front page. Not yet. Camera operators lifted their faces from their equipment, suddenly unsure what kind of acceptance speech they were witnessing. Female host gently called him too modest and insisted that he deserved the honor. Wei only shook his head. If saving someone was charcoal delivered in snowy weather, he said, then old Mr. Meng had already given away an entire coal mine. His own contribution was merely a fingernail-sized speck of residue. Wei removed even the comfort of good intentions. If he had known beforehand that rescuing someone would injure him like firefighter Jin Jefeng, would he still have rushed forward? He admitted that the answer was uncertain. For that reason, he would not join the 10 winners group photograph. The male host urgently reminded him that netizens had chosen him. Wei did not use the vote as permission to rank himself beside those heroes. Instead, he used the attention to change what ordinary people could risk. In the future, he told the audience if they saw an elderly grandmother fall, they should feel free to help her. If everything went well, the Tianxing Fund would reward them. And if helping brought accusations or trouble, Tianxing's legal team would take over. If money still had to be paid, Wei declared that he would cover it personally. Calling the pledge a small measure of social responsibility from a playboy entrepreneur, he gave the audience both protection and a name they could hold accountable. Wei softened his voice. His father had often taught him one sentence, always keep a pure heart and do not fail your lofty ambitions. Wei promised that he would strive toward it, thanked everyone and bowed. Then, rather than lingering beneath the praise, he turned and walked gracefully away from the stage. Venue erupted behind him. Praise chased the wealthy Wei heir down the aisle. The younger generation was formidable. The patriotic playboy was not so simple. The female host called him a spirited young man whose conduct matched his words. Then the male host began clapping, slowly at first, until the entire auditorium rose into thunderous applause. Captain Li Sha could only stare after him, jaw dropped. She remembered the wealthy playboy she had taken from Huangting Spa, then the man who had saved her at the crossroads. Tonight revealed something broader still. A young man willing to question his own courage and spend his resources making courage easier for everyone else. At the same time, a car sat beside a main road with its lights on. Beyond the windshield, a giant commercial screen carried the live ceremony to crowds of passers-by. Inside, Ning Xingruo and Luo Yu had watched Wei's speech from beginning to end. For several quiet seconds, both women simply stared. Ning finally murmured with unmistakable pride, "My man really is a treasure." Luo Yu nodded. The speech had surprised the city but not her. Years ago, when she had been trapped in misery, Brother Tianci had appeared like a divine soldier and saved her. Tonight's Wei was not a revelation to Luo, it was the man she already knew. Elsewhere, and Mayu had gone home furious after Wei drove her out of the prison. Once she calmed down, anger gave way to restless worry. Did prisons have bathtubs, smart toilets? Could inmates choose Chinese or Western food? Her parents stared at her, dumbfounded by each increasingly absurd question, while the awards gala continued on their television. And the television host's clear voice reached across the living room. "Next is the third winner, Wei Tianci," and froze. The man she had been imagining trapped without luxury was not merely out of prison. He was about to appear before the entire city as one of Shanghai's 10 most touching figures. Still staring at the television, and Mayu heard the broadcast continue. She hurried directly in front of the screen, half convinced this had to be another man with the same name. It was not. The Wei Tianci she had imagined trapped in prison was appearing before the city as an honored, touching figure. And almost never watched television, but now she stayed through Wei's performance. By the end, disbelief had softened into reluctant admiration. "That bad guy actually sees the bigger picture," she murmured. His public transformation was already spreading far beyond the ceremony hall. One of those ripples reached Building 8 in Tingyun Villa District. Superstar Lan Qingcheng emerged from her nightly bath in a white towel and open-toed slippers, settled onto the living room sofa, and began her habitual scan of the news. Keeping abreast of the media was part of staying ahead in her industry. Top 10 touching figures ceremony made Lan pause. She set the remote aside and watched Wei's upright performance. Her foxy curiosity sharpened into calculation. The notorious young master had just become a civic golden signboard, and that new reputation could be converted into something much larger. Entertainment company built with Wei could shelter itself from trouble on every side. His touching figure status would bring public trust. Lan's superstar popularity would bring attention. Better still, he would not spend every meeting leering at her. To Lan, the combination looked like a perfect, strong alliance. Convinced she had found the opening for her career's second spring, Lan worked her network immediately. One friend led to another, and half an hour of calls and messages finally produced Wei Tianci's phone number. She drew a steadying breath and dialed. When the line connected, Lan's tone turned warm and polished. "Hello, young Master Wei, this is Lan Qingcheng." Rather than pitch the company immediately, she offered a social opening, an open-air cocktail party at Tingyun Villa District that weekend. Would he have time to attend? Wei refused casually. He was not free that weekend. Lan's smile stiffened. She had not expected a popular superstar to carry so little weight with him. Recovering at once, she softened her voice and proposed the following weekend instead. That was still more than 10 days away. Before Wei could refuse again, Lan turned persistence into playful pressure. If that date failed too, she could keep moving the party until he was free. Wei, speechless, finally agreed to next weekend. Lan thanked him brightly for gracing the party, exchanged a few pleasantries, and ended the call delighted. Elsewhere, the same broadcast produced the opposite effect. In prison, Yifan stared at Wei's high-spirited image with widening eyes. His cheeks flushed crimson, the muscles in his face twitched, and anger gathered like a fire ready to erupt. And the camera found Captain Li Sha below the stage, her star-bright eyes openly affectionate as she watched Wei. He sprang to his feet. He shouted that the award was fixed, that Wei had no right to it, and that Li Sha's famed impartiality was a lie because the two were in cahoots. His abuse brought the prison guards down on him with batons and guns. He still wanted to resist and vent his fury, but 3 cold barrels touched his forehead before he could act. The threat was immediate, ruthless, and impossible to ignore. His fury vanished into a chill down his spine. At only the chi refinement stage, he was nowhere near invulnerable to blades or bullets. Survival mattered more than pride. He would endure this humiliation for now. Letting his face go ashen, he apologized. "I'm sorry, I lost control of my emotions." With 3 guns still fresh in his mind, Yifan forced down his fury. He faced the room, apologized to everyone, and bent into a full 90-degree bow. The chief proctor answered with a cold snort. Since this was Yi's first offense, he would be given one chance to reform. That chance came with a vicious condition. Yi had to write 3,000 words under the title, "My Role Model, Wei Tianci." If the reflection was poor, he would operate a sewing machine in the workshop the next day. Yi's already ashen face darkened another shade. Proctors already knew Wei had been released, but Yi remained trapped. Prisoners laughed that the Egg Emperor was being forced to praise his old enemy. At the edge of another rage, Yi suddenly became clear-headed. Every extra day here made him more passive. Pride could wait. He needed an early exit. He then asked permission to make 2 calls. The chief proctor demanded names and reasons. First, he wanted to tell relatives working for Japan's Kawashima family that he was safe. Second, he wanted his fiancée in Shanghai to send daily necessities and hire him a lawyer. His lowered voice carried a newly sharpened confidence. Elsewhere at Wei Tianci's villa, alarming intelligence reached Kawashima Mai. Enemies from Japan would soon track her down. Her face remained as still as a tranquil lake. Inside, however, the warning rolled like thunder. Violence had followed her all her life, and she had never known an ordinary woman's happiness. Kawashima asked herself what joy there was in living, or what reason remained to fear death. Then Wei's fresh, handsome face surfaced in her mind, and her frozen expression softened. One consolation remained. Young Master Tianci was in prison, beyond the reach of the danger gathering around her. With her cicada wing armor protecting him, Kawashima decided that prison had become Wei's best safe haven. Perhaps she would already be dead when he came home. She looked over every tree and blade of grass in the villa, then hurried toward his bedroom to prepare one final service. She gathered every shirt and pair of pants Wei had worn and carried them to the laundry room. Then she wiped the living room, cleaned the dining room, and mopped the floor. If she vanished, Wei would at least return to clean clothes and a spotless home. That would be her final service as his housekeeper. In the courtyard's iron gate clanged open. Wei Tianci walked in with one hand in his pocket. He stopped. Kawashima stopped. To Wei, the tall, snow-white beauty on the steps looked like a princess dropped into the mortal world, except that this princess was holding a mop. Surprise could not distract Kawashima from her priority. In front of the young master who always seemed to know too much, she chose honesty. Enemies from Japan were pursuing her. They would soon lock onto this location and come. To keep that danger away from him, she asked to resign and leave. Wei was genuinely startled. Kawashima was one of the story's female leads. He could not allow her to be killed. He hid that urgency behind an employer's displeasure. Her resignation was refused. She had already taken his salary, he declared, so she could forget about slacking off and keep working. Inside, Wei's words were nothing like his performance. Where could a woman alone in an unfamiliar place possibly run? Let her enemies come. He wanted to see how much trouble they could cause. As long as Wei Tianci remained here, he would keep Kawashima safe. She only needed to stay beside him. Wei strode toward his bedroom without allowing another objection. Kawashima stared after him, warmth rising in a heart long accustomed to slaughter. Then she gave a quiet chuckle. Her silly young master thought this was a playboy's quarrel. He did not understand a Jonin team, flashing blades, or a world where death could arrive at any moment. Kawashima watched Wei disappear toward his room, but warmth could not erase experience. He could not keep her safe. If the Jonin team found her, she would lure them away herself. They had come for a sword king, not an ordinary young master. At Tingyan Villa's Building 8, superstar Lan Qingcheng had already gone to bed when Shanghai prison called. The prisoner was Yi Fan, her legendary overseas fiancé. His grand entrance into her life was a request. Visit the prison, hire a lawyer, and bail him out. Lan had known since childhood that a fiancé waited overseas. She once pictured a dashing prince arriving with a rose and declaring that she was the only woman he could love. Reality offered no rose, only a prisoner asking her to find him a lawyer. Paired with the dashing Wei Tianci, Yi looked hopelessly incompetent. Lan summoned her manager, Sister Hong, and settled onto the living room sofa. The inherited engagement could remain unfulfilled. A confident smile touched her red lips. Perhaps Wei was the man she should bring to her feet. Next day, scorching sun beat down on Shanghai prison's outdoor labor field. Inmates weeded and farmed beneath guards' batons. Only Li Qinglong slept beneath a shady tree. As prison boss, Brother Li had underlings complete his work for him. He recognized Li as the killer he had sought. He tossed aside his sickle and walked over unarmed. The watching prisoners assumed the mocked Egg Emperor was nursing a grudge, but trusted Brother Li to handle him. He stopped over Li and asked whether he remembered the barefoot child. Li moved without warning. He snatched up a pebble, flipped to his feet, and hurled the hard stone straight at Yi's head. The lazy prison king had vanished. Recognition had exposed raw fear. But the desperate ambush could not stop the survivor standing before him. Under Yi's pressure, Li revealed that the Yi family had possessed a magic beast in her core. Someone behind the scenes had hired him in connection with the attack, then disappeared after he obtained it. Yi's anger narrowed into calculation. His supposedly ordinary parents had been hiding an extraordinary history. Magic beast in her core was no trinket. Even the lowest tier could raise Yi's cultivation by half a realm. That made his parents' possession of one even more suspicious, and made Li's next answer urgent. He narrowed his eyes. If the employer vanished, then where was the core? Li admitted the core was still with him. At Yi's command, he rummaged through his clothes and produced a thumb-sized round box. His hands shook as he surrendered it and begged Brother Yi for a chance, insisting that he had been ignorant and gained nothing from the crime. He nodded and said he would give Li a chance to be reincarnated. Then his foot struck the ground. A hidden force burst through Li and shattered every meridian. Blood sprayed from Li's mouth before he toppled backward like a plank and hit the earth with a final thud. Li Qinglong had barely struck the ground before the prison yard erupted. His underlings shouted that Yi Fan was a bastard and demanded to know what he had done to Brother Li. Threats followed, then the whole group surged toward him at once. Whistles shrieked, guards fired warning shots overhead and forced the mob back before anyone reached Yi. When the belated doctor finally examined Li, he only shook his head. A blood vessel had burst. There was no saving him. He mocked the accusation. He had never even touched Lee, so why couldn't the man have suffered a hemorrhage? The prisoners had seen that much themselves. Suspicion dissolved. Only the strange glint in Yi's eyes revealed the truth. An imprisoned dragon emperor could still crush a few small fries. While Shanghai prison churned with panic, Tianxing group was celebrating. Wei's performance and solemn promise at the touching Shanghai ceremony had given the market fresh confidence. The stock kept climbing until the increase reached tens of billions. Ning Xingruo approved a bonus for every employee and made sure they remembered whose contribution had created it. Then, as soon as work ended, she drove toward Wei's villa. She wanted to share the windfall with her fiancé and take him home so her family could see what he had accomplished. Ning entered the villa courtyard expecting Wei. Instead, she stopped short at the sight of a stunning woman in a kimono. She took the stranger in, then collected Wei and resumed the drive toward her family, carrying one very pointed question with her. Inside the car, Ning's warm foot tapped against Wei with such steady rhythm that his exposed thoughts worried she might make him vomit before they arrived. She puzzled over that, then understood the implication. Her face flamed red. She stopped, glared at him, and casually asked about the kimono woman. Wei said housekeeper Wang was handling the Thompson Riviera apartment, so a temporary nanny had been hired. Her name was Kawashima Mai. His thoughts supplied what his voice did not. She was Yi Fan's heroine, the dignified female sword king, inexplicably living under his roof. Wei's dilemma continued in silence. Let Kawashima leave and she would be in danger. Keep her and the arrangement could not last. He would shelter her until her original plot appearance, then send her back to the main story. Ning's jealousy vanished. Perhaps this heroine, like Luo Yu, could be won over. That thought reminded Ning of Luo Yu. She told Wei how worried the young woman had been during his imprisonment and urged him to show her more care, even take her out for a meal. Then came the real revelation. To avenge Wei, Luo had risked exposing herself and arranged for Yi Fan to be imprisoned too. Ning wanted to comfort him, but she could not explain how much she heard inside his heart. Acting on impulse, she pushed her warm little feet farther and began tapping and rubbing in a deliberate rhythm. Wei turned toward her in disbelief. Did Xingruo understand what she was doing? Ning claimed she was only loosening a tired driver's muscles, but her playful movements intensified. Wei warned that the massage might make him vomit, and that vomiting on her feet would be bad. Ning smiled. Wherever it happened, she would clean it. She was his future wife. Why should he be embarrassed before her? Ning told him to stop holding back and relax. Her words were calm, but her voice trembled. Wei could only look at her sullenly and concede in his heart, "Sorry, madam." Half an hour later, the car reached the Ning family courtyard, with both of them carrying the unmistakable aftermath of that charged drive. Wei Tianci and Ning Xingruo stepped out of the car wearing equally suspicious expressions. Wei looked coy but thoroughly refreshed, still savoring the astonishing attention she had given him. Ning's face mixed playfulness with shy embarrassment, yet beneath both was a quiet glow of happiness. Housekeeper Zhang greeted them at once. Their timing, she explained, was perfect. Branch family cousin Ning Goyan had also brought her boyfriend to see old master Ning. Ning's pleased expression tightened into a frown the moment she heard Goyan's name. Ning family was a large clan, still headed by its living patriarch. Whenever a junior entered a serious relationship, tradition demanded an introduction to old master Ning for approval, followed by recognition from the wider family. Today, two couples had arrived under that same rule. Ning decided that she and Wei would go to her room first and join the conference hall later. Then, almost as an afterthought, she asked Zhang to send up a bag of laundry detergent. Once they left, the housekeeper stared after their perfectly neat figures in confusion. Inside Ning Xingruo's boudoir, Wei finally asked who Ning Goyan was. Inwardly, he was even more curious about Ning's strange reaction to the boyfriend's arrival. The question was casual, but his attention stayed fixed on her face as she sighed. Ning explained that Goyan was the daughter of her third uncle from the Branch family. Since childhood, Goyan had treated her as a rival. Now word had spread that the boyfriend came from a powerful background, making this visit another obvious chance for Goyan to compete. Meanwhile, Ma Junyu sat before old Master Ning and the assembled relatives as if the hall belonged to him. His reserved air never softened into respect. The family disliked his pretension immediately, but this was Goyan's first visit with a boyfriend, so courtesy restrained them. Ma sniffed the air and announced that dinner must be underway. He could already smell braised lion's head meatballs. Housekeeper Zhang politely confirmed that the dining hall was next door and they would sit down shortly. Instead of waiting, Ma settled even deeper into his chair. Without tasting anything, Ma declared the meatballs inauthentic. Zhang reminded him that Chef Liu was a veteran with 30 years of experience. Ma answered with naked disdain, trash remained trash even after 100 years. The room's strained courtesy grew visibly thinner. At home, Ma boasted, those meatballs used specially supplied ingredients and were prepared by a state banquet chef. How could someone accustomed to that standard fail to recognize an inferior version? He looked across the elders and servants with an almost comical sense of superiority. Ma's pose concealed a humiliating recent history. At a Michelin-starred restaurant, Wei Tianci had smashed several wine bottles over his head. Ma had retreated to Yangcheng in disgrace, and the injury beneath his hat was still healing when he met the local Ning Goyen. After some back and forth, Ma and Goyen had become a couple, but his private intentions were nothing like hers. He considered her family background merely average and had no thought of marriage. He agreed to this visit only because he had not yet grown tired of her. Every fresh insult made the Ning relatives seethe. Yet challenging Goyen's first guest too aggressively would allow outsiders to call the whole clan petty. They could neither make a scene nor comfortably ignore him. Their silence was etiquette under pressure, not approval. Goyen failed to read the room completely. Gazing at her boyfriend with blissful pride, she told her grandfather and uncles that Junyu possessed excellent taste and only pursued high-class hobbies. The entire hall froze at the implication that everyone else's interests were beneath him. Their young masters merely ate, drank, and played, Goyen claimed. Her Junyu hunted across Africa like the world's greatest big shots, standing in a pickup with a rifle, chasing lions, leopards, and even elephants until every beast fled. To her, the entire savannah was his playground. Goyen eagerly supplied the proof that would complete her boyfriend's heroic image. She told Ma Junyu to remove his hat and show everyone his head. His expression stiffened. Beneath that hat was no trophy from Africa, but the bandaged wound Wei Tianci had given him. Ma remembered how Goyen had first noticed the bandage at a bar. He had invented the African hunt on the spot, never imagining she would repeat it to her whole family. Recovering now, he smiled modestly and declared that exciting hobbies were worth a small injury. Fang Min was not merely another impressed relative. She had worked as a nurse when she was young. Looking carefully at the bandage, she asked how the bloodthirsty maw of a lion or leopard could possibly leave such a small, superficial wound instead of taking his head off. Ma's quick wit rescued him from the first lie with a second. Scoffing at Fang, he said Africa held more than lions and elephants. A vulture had ambushed him while he chased a lion, but his reflexes were so sharp that he caught the bird one-handed and ate it for dinner. Goyen accepted every word. Calling Junyu amazing, she kissed her heroic boyfriend in front of the whole family and gazed at him as though he had conquered Africa. Fang Min, however, was displeased. She had raised a reasonable doubt, and Ma had answered her without basic decency. Unwilling to let anyone examine the hunt further, Ma brazenly demanded to know why dinner had not begun. The delay ended with Ning Xingruo's arrival beside her fiancé, Wei Tianci. As Xingruo offered the family an apology, Ma abruptly rose at the sight of the man accompanying her. Goyen rose with a surge of joy. She assumed Ma had stood to help dampen her elder sister's spirit. With open sarcasm, she told Xingruo there was no need to apologize. She was not late. She simply had no habit of arriving early. Then Goyen waited for the usual retaliation. But the strong-willed Xingruo did not take the bait. She kept hold of Wei and answered Goyen's hostility with a serene smile. The silence unsettled Goyen more than any retort. Studying the man beside her sister, she realized that Wei seemed to give Xingruo a new sense of reliance. Wei looked past Goyen and spoke lightly to Ma. Was young Master Ma swindling people again with his family's worthless brand? Had he already forgotten the warning from their last encounter? Goyen flared in outrage, but Ma knew exactly who stood before him, and his face turned ashen. Ma answered Goyen's outrage with a thunderous slap against his own face. Apologizing to young Master Wei, he bowed a full 90 degrees. Wei offered only a cold snort. Ma's legs weakened. He slapped himself again, bowed lower, and begged for one final chance. Repeated slaps erased the last trace of Ma's heroic image. Faced with Wei's cold authority, he scrambled away like a frightened bird, abandoning the woman who had praised, kissed, and defended him. Goyen was left alone before the family with every boast publicly overturned. Goyen might have expected Wei to turn his power on her next. Instead, he left her standing there and walked directly to the elders with a smile. He greeted Elder Ning, then Uncle Ning and Aunt Fang. The family rose warmly and returned his courtesy. Everyone immediately held Wei in higher regard. A brainless young master would have flaunted his victory, beaten Ma, and slapped Goyen for effect. That might feel powerful, but it would only make him another Ma Junyu, an arrogant man too foolish to understand whose home he stood in. Goyen was still a Ning. Striking her would insult the entire family and deny his fiancée the right to handle her own dispute. So Wei left Goyen's fate to Xingruo, giving both her and the Ning's full face. Ning Chengying and Fang Min exchanged a knowing look. Wei Tianci truly had changed. Once Ning Xingruo finished scolding Goyen, everyone took a seat at the dining table. They were still one family. The clash had been sharp, but it was an internal quarrel, not hatred that could not be repaired. Xingruo, by contrast, was beaming. She told the family that Tianci had been chosen as a moving Shanghai figure, founded a public welfare fund, and lifted the group's stock price. Those moves had raised Tianxing Group's social influence and financial strength together. The Ning's Wei now looked like a treasure of a son-in-law, able to raise stock prices, handle arrogant young masters, and contribute to the country. Even Goyen was awed. Being Xingruo's little sister suddenly seemed less humiliating than useful. Why reject the shade of such a great tree? Outside, Ma Junyu remained in his Ferrari without starting the engine. One dissolute young master understood another. Wei's refusal to strike him felt abnormal, not merciful. Ma decided Wei had only spared the dinner's atmosphere, and that once he had time, the real reckoning could begin. Lan Qingcheng viewed the same famous young master Wei from the opposite direction. She imagined giving him just enough sweetness to draw him in, then playing him in the palm of her hand. In her mind, he was already another powerful admirer destined to want what he could never have. Back at dinner, a system notification struck without warning. Wei had advanced the Kawashima family power struggle ahead of schedule. His reward was equally specific: ancient medical techniques, the art of rejuvenation. Wei froze, baffled. He had been drinking in Shanghai, not interfering in Japan. Wei accepted that a free reward was still a reward and drank another round. Then the missing connection hit him like lightning. He had not gone to Japan, but Kawashima Mai was living in his villa. If the system said the family struggle had advanced, the attack could be happening at home right now. Wei shot to his feet, seized the Bentley keys, and ran. The astonished Nings watched him disappear before he turned back long enough to call, "Xingru, I have something to handle. Don't worry about me, keep eating." Then he was gone, racing toward the villa. Wei's deduction was correct. In the villa courtyard, Kawashima Mai faced the greatest crisis of her celebrated life. She held her cicada wing curved blade low, its tip angled down at 45 degrees, and slowly turned in place, every muscle tense, every sense searching the darkness around her. Whooshing sounds cut through the courtyard. The ambush left Mai bleeding, and 7 dark-clad Jonin revealed the trap around her. They advanced step by step, eyes cold as vipers. Mai gave them no cry and no plea. Even wounded, she watched them with absolute calm. Central Ninja called her stupid. She had known they would come to cut down the weeds and tear out the roots, yet she had not run. He sneered that the Kawashima family was fortunate not to have made her its leader. Mai answered with silence. Death had never frightened her. One thought brought Mai a strange measure of relief. Tianci had happened to visit the Ning family tonight. If she died here, at least he had escaped this disaster. Holding that consolation close, she slowly lifted her blade and prepared to stake everything on one throw. Her hair tie snapped. Long hair cascaded over the shoulders of her snow-white dress, wooden clogs planted beneath her as her aura sword. A beauty with a blade stood ready to go all out. The 7 Jonin sprang forward. Mai met them with one ruthless vow. Either I kill all 7 tonight, or all 7 kill me. Kill. 7 Jonin crashed into Mai's last stand like a living bombardment. Steel flashed through the villa courtyard, shadows crossed, and sparks sprayed from every collision. Yet at the center of that storm, Mai's curved blade only moved faster. 3 silver arcs whispered through the melee. 3 Jonin heads left their shoulders, blood lifting into the night. The remaining 4 recoiled, but only for an instant. In perfect unison, they pulled bottles from their pockets, drank, and restored themselves to full health. 4 survivors changed tactics. One pressed, another withdrew, and fresh attackers replaced tired ones before Mai could finish a killing stroke. She still refused to yield, but exhaustion accumulated on only one side, so she never noticed when their leader slipped beyond the courtyard wall. Before the hidden blade could move, metal thundered at the courtyard entrance. The great iron gate burst inward, and a Bentley forced its way through. Wei Tianci had crossed the city at full speed and driven straight into Mai's battlefield. I did not celebrate. Her voice rose into a panic Wei had never heard from her. Stay in the car, turn around, leave now. When one Jonin rushed him, she abandoned her own defense and lunged to intercept. The other blade struck her exposed back. Seeing Wei outside the car, Mai stared blankly. For one bleak instant, she thought they had become a pair of star-crossed lovers trapped together at the end. Then Wei saw her wounds. Whatever restraint had carried him through the gate vanished. Wei activated Lingbo microsteps. His body crossed the 100-meter approach like a flying dragon, then blurred into a phantom. The 3 Jonin barely had time to recognize the impossible lightness skill before he was already upon them. Brilliant light erupted from Wei's body. His fist burned like a small sun. One punch, then a second, then a third. The max-level Teizu long fist struck with the force of thunder and missiles. All 3 Jonin exploded apart, and blood mist drifted across the courtyard. Villa courtyard went deathly quiet. Mai could only stare. The young master she had never once seen cultivate had moved like a meteor and struck with mountain-splitting force. He possessed a prophet's foresight and a tyrant's martial power. How many secrets was he still hiding? They came straight to Mai and asked if she was all right. She answered softly that she was fine and that his skill had surprised her. He smiled, then slapped his forehead. In his anger, he had forgotten to leave even one visible survivor to question. Black steel bolt tore out of concealment. By the time Mai turned, its point was 1 centimeter from her heart, the top-tier ninja's true killing move. Wei did not think. He threw himself between them and the bolt drove straight into his back. Clang, the bolt dropped harmlessly to the ground. Mai exhaled, shaken but relieved. The cicada wing armor she had given Wei had saved him. Wei turned in fury toward the distant wall. There, the blood-eyed leader stared back, wondering if this was the playboy Yi Fan had warned them about. Last assassin had dismissed Wei Tianci as an insignificant playboy. That mistake had cost him everything. Wei's impossible speed and 3 thunderous strikes had killed his subordinates, and even the leader's black steel crossbow bolt had failed. The blood-eyed Jonin finally understood. The man before him was a super expert and an absolute threat. Aju tried to recover the initiative. Did Wei know who he was opposing? Wei answered with a colder question. Did Kawashima Aju know who he was speaking to? Panic flashed across the leader's face. That real name had not been used since he was 3, and even among the Jonin it was top secret. Wei merely said he knew plenty. Aju knew nothing about him. Wei slowly extended his right hand, palm upward. As it rose, a surging aura climbed with it. Aju stared in astonishment. Wei could release true chi. In the assassin's judgment, that made him invincible. All thoughts of pride vanished. Aju turned and sprinted along the courtyard wall, but Wei's voice followed him. Trying to escape now was already too late. He drove his palm downward. Dragon elephant heavy hand, destroy. Destructive energy formed above Aju's head. He looked up in horror as the pressure descended like the collapsing sky. The force struck him like a colossal thunderbolt and killed him instantly. The last assassin was gone. The attack on Mai had ended beneath a single remote palm strike. Once the danger was over, Wei's attention returned to Mai's wounded back. His unspoken rebuke reached her clearly. If he had arrived any later, the silly girl would have lost her life. Mai pursed her lips and offered no defense. Together, they left the wrecked courtyard and walked to her bedroom, carrying the battle's tension into a much quieter kind of danger. He calmly explained the treatment. Mai needed to expose her back and lie flat while he sat behind her, using the ancient art of rejuvenation across the wounds. She fell silent. Before Zhanghai, she would have drawn her blade on any man who asked. To her, chastity mattered more than death. Yet after only a brief pause, she answered, "Very well." I turned away, raised the kimono to her waist, and lay prone with her back exposed. She maintained the female sword king's calm, but her body betrayed her. Neck, ears, and back flushed crimson, sweat gathered, and when Wei removed his shoes and climbed onto the bed, her toes tightened and her feet pressed together. He positioned himself behind her and began the treatment. I knew exactly how others judged her beauty and figure. She had heard praise such as prestigious family and grade A, and knew how many men dreamed of conquering a woman as powerful as the female sword king. Yet while Wei's hands worked over her wounds, not one degrading thought entered his mind. His restraint was rare. Despite her embarrassment, the bedroom settled into an inexplicably warm silence. Wei's hands stiffened. He stared at the skin surrounding Mai's fresh wound. Apart from today's injury, her back was like carved jade. There was not a single blemish or old scar. Her earlier claim had been true. Since reaching adulthood, she had never been injured. So why had she suffered her first wound only after coming to his villa? Wei's mind accelerated. Clues aligned in a split second. When Wei leapt in front of the crossbow bolt, Mai had not panicked. She had expected him to survive. More importantly, neither bronze skin and iron bones nor returning the opponent's Wei upon themselves had activated. Something else had stopped the bolt first. Wei understood at last. The clothing Mai gave him was treasure armor, and it had already saved his life. Wei stared at the concealed armor with a new weight in his chest. Mai had not merely given him clothing. She had handed him a second life. Yet his own special constitutions already guarded him. If he had understood sooner, he would never have accepted the armor, and Mai might not have suffered her first wound today. His decision came at once. A grown man could not keep protection, she needed more. Silence behind Mai stretched too long. Confused, she raised her head toward the full-length mirror and froze. The young master was taking off his clothes while insisting inwardly that he was a grown man. Mai flipped over and hurried off the bed. Her face stayed carefully blank, but her thoughts did not. She had developed special feelings for him, yes, yet this was far too fast for a traditional woman. She demanded, "What are you planning to do?" Wei answered irritably that he was returning the armor, nothing more. He was exceptionally gifted and had no use for it. Mai's expression froze. She had misunderstood completely. Wei told her to hold out one hand, corrected her to the other, and personally guided the armor back onto her. His inner complaints only sharpened her embarrassment. She was a grown woman, yet he still had to dress her. Garments settled into the close fit it had been made for, restoring its protection to its rightful wearer. Wei's thoughts shifted. He had not expected Mai to possess such a significant background. Her embarrassment gave way to confusion. He had known she belonged to the Kawashima family from her first day of duty, so what further secret did he mean? Before she could draw out the answer, Ning Xingruo arrived. With an easy smile, Wei's fiancé asked to borrow Mai's phone because her own had run out of power, then told the pair to carry on. The instant Ning reached the living room, her leisurely act disappeared. She picked up Mai's phone and called Luo Yu. Her instruction was exact. Trace this number, concentrate on any frequent contact with Yi Fan, and miss no detail. Luo was startled by the sudden assignment, but agreed immediately. Ning ended the call and kept the borrowed phone in her hands. Ning's suspicion had not appeared from nowhere. Since returning from the Ning family with Wei, she had been unable to settle. In the car, his inner voice had revealed what was supposed to come next. A high-speed chase, Tianci injured in a crash, and Yifan gaining another martial arts upgrade. Wei had then rushed away from dinner, and a late-night call revealed that an assassin had crossed the ocean for Mai. That left Ning with 2 questions. Would my sensitive identity drag Tianci into further danger? And even without the outside threat, could Mai herself be trusted? Wei's thoughts called Mai a heroine. Luo could be won over before her later fall into darkness, but Ning could not assume the same approach would work here. While Luo worked, Ning casually flipped through the phone's apps. Then her gaze caught on the screen. She sat upright at once. Whatever she found did not resemble the distant, high-end mighty swordswoman staying in this villa. The discovery did not answer the question of loyalty, but it exposed an unexpectedly private side of Mai and gave Ning something new to consider. Luo's report arrived with the detail Ning had demanded. The number belonged to a Japanese telecommunications company and had remained active in Japan. Before Mai came to Shanghai, she had spoken with Yifan. That was the suspicious part. The decisive part came next. Since her arrival, the two had made no further contact. Luo had also checked every social media account linked to the number and found 0 communication with Yifan. Ning slowly nodded. The evidence did not erase Mai's past connection, but it cleared the danger Ning cared about most. The connection was not continuing. The investigation complete, Ning changed the subject. It was the weekend. Did Luo have time that afternoon? Luo answered that she had plenty. Since her boss Yifan was imprisoned, she had effectively been on a half-month vacation. Ning chuckled, then delivered the real surprise. Tianci planned to take Luo horse riding at the racecourse and would contact her later. Luo's heart skipped. She quietly said she understood, but joy rushed through her. Brother Tianci wanted to take her out, and Sister Ning herself had approved and relayed the invitation. The moment the call ended, Luo began getting ready. Ning ended the call and considered everything she had learned. For now, Kawashima Mai did not seem to be much of a problem. The judgment was cautious, not absolute, but the trail to Yifan had gone cold after Mai's arrival in Shanghai. A moment later, Wei and Mai came out of the bedroom together. The armor was back where it belonged, and Mai had gathered herself completely. Whatever embarrassment had filled the room moments earlier was hidden behind her usual noble temperament. Ning watched her approach, still holding the phone that had revealed more than Mai realized. Back in Wei Tianci's living room, his fiancée Ning Xingruo finally returned Kawashima Mai's phone. Her polite thanks came with a meaningful look. After seeing those surprisingly childish searches, Ning could hardly reconcile the private woman behind the screen with the proud female sword king standing before her. Her own disgust, Mai felt guilty. She had faced ruthless enemies across the world without blinking, yet this woman with no martial arts made panic stir in her chest. Was Ning secretly a peerless expert? Agitated by the absurd thought, Mai escaped outside, seized a hose, and began watering the courtyard flowers. Wei sat opposite Ning and wondered why she had come. Was his fiancée trying to catch him cheating? In his mind, the accusation would be absurd. Mai was destined to belong to Yifan. Then he remembered that, according to the original script, Ning was never supposed to become his woman either. Thought angered them both. Mai pictured Yifan and felt not affection but murderous intent. Ning's reaction was colder and more deliberate. If she, Wei's own fiancée, could not become his woman, then who could? She would defy the heavens, rewrite his precious script, and begin with Luo Yu. Ning smiled and announced that Luo Yu had called. She wanted to visit the racecourse that afternoon and learn the noble arts of riding and archery from Wei himself. The claim sounded innocent, but it was Ning's first deliberate strike against the script. Across from her, Wei could only stare in stunned silence. Elsewhere, the newly released Yifan was riding toward Lan Qingcheng in a black Mercedes. His white-gloved driver carefully noted one problem. Meeting his fiancée in a prison uniform and plastic shoes hardly looked impressive. He approved the advice, doubled the man's monthly bonus, and ordered a mall stop before they continued to Qingcheng's place. At noon, beneath blue skies and white clouds, Lan Qingcheng's cocktail party began on Tingyun Villa District's public lawn. She had spared no expense. Doormen received the cars, guests passed beneath a balloon arch onto a red carpet, violinists played beside their route, and hostesses guided each arrival to the signature wall. Signature wall filled with names from entertainment and high society. Lan had hinted that this private reception would unveil a major decision, and curiosity did the rest. Nearly everyone accepted. They mingled across the lawn, trading smiles and speculation, each eager to be present when the superstar finally revealed what all this ceremony was for. Anne herself was not enjoying the anticipation. She smiled, greeted guests, and handled every exchange with a superstar's practiced ease, yet her large expressive eyes kept darting toward the main villa road. Ma Junyu's mediation had convinced her that Wei Tianci was interested, but interest did not guarantee that he would actually come. In a black Mercedes rolled toward the party. Relief swept through Lan. Wei had finally arrived. She hurried forward to greet him, but when the door opened, her smile vanished. The man stepping out was thin and ordinary-looking, with a shaved head, a crooked mouth, and an offensively self-satisfied expression. It was not Wei Tianci, it was Yifan. Fan saw Lan Qingcheng hurrying toward the car and assumed his fiancée had come to welcome him. Her glamorous presence only encouraged him. He greeted her with a lewd joke about her 2 pieces of oversized carry-on luggage. Lan's eyebrows rose. She had no idea who this shaved-headed stranger was, and she was ready to call security. His smile locked in place. His white-gloved driver hurried out and introduced him with ceremony, Mr. Yi Fan, his boss, and Lan Qingcheng's fiancée. Xiao Bai even claimed he had returned from overseas and rushed straight to her. He rewarded the lie with an approving glance. At least one person understood how this reunion was supposed to look. Only then did Lan inspect Yi seriously. She told both men to find seats. Anyone who came was a guest, but warned Xiao Bai to watch his mouth. He had not returned from overseas. He had been released from prison. Then she walked away, already planning to dissolve the engagement after she secured today's important cooperation with Wei Tianci. He frowned after her. In his version of events, he was the beloved fiancé for whom Lan had arranged a lavish welcome after prison. She should have been delighted. Instead, she had barely acknowledged him. Unable to surrender the fantasy, he took a seat with Xiao Bai and searched the party for an explanation that would preserve his pride. He recognized the man arriving at the reception, Wei Tianci, the bastard he hated most. His face darkened at once. Xiao Bai sensed danger and improvised quickly. Perhaps Lan knew about their feud and had invited Wei so she could display her affection for Yi in front of him. The flattering theory was absurd, but Yi slowly accepted it. Lan lifted the microphone before the whole lawn. With unmistakable enthusiasm, she announced the arrival of Wei Tianci, one of Shanghai's 4 young masters, and called for applause. She led it herself, set the microphone down, and hurried to greet him. In one public gesture, Xiao Bai's comforting story began to collapse. Xiao Bai stared after Lan for a beat, privately swearing off every vice except the one her alluring figure made impossible to renounce. He slammed his fist down. How had Wei become the guest of honor? Xiao Bai scrambled again. Wei was merely a guest, while Lan's fiancé was half the host. He seized on that distinction, and the driver quietly exhaled. Wei entered beneath the gaze of the reception, and Lan met him with the polished allure that normally made men surrender their attention. Wei gave her no such satisfaction. His indifference was so complete that Lan found herself confronting an unfamiliar possibility. A man might actually turn a blind eye to her. Rather than flirt, Wei settled into a chair and had duck liver and layered abalone brought over. He ate slowly, savoring each bite while Lan remained close enough to watch. The behavior looked casually plebeish, but its message was precise. The food interested him more than the famous beauty beside him. Wei's pose concealed a careful calculation. Other female leads were already drifting away from the novel's intended course. He could not let Lan Qingcheng become another deviation, especially not one this dangerous. Yet refusing her invitation outright might leave him blind to a new plot threat. He had come to investigate, while keeping contact to an absolute minimum. Lan saw him eating as though she were not there, and her competitive spirit ignited. Fine, she would see how long he could maintain the act. With a calculating roll of her eyes, she claimed the chair directly beside him and leaned into his space, replacing the failed grand welcome with a more intimate test. Watching Wei with held breath, Lan finally began. She had invited young Master Wei to discuss a matter of life, then caught herself, smiling like a blooming peach blossom as she corrected the phrasing. Wei did not even pause. He continued eating and drinking at his own pace, forcing Lan to carry the conversation into whatever came next. Before Lan could finish setting up her grand proposition, Wei's impatience rang through her mind. Just say it already. He was in a hurry to go riding with Luo Yu. Lan froze. Wei had not moved his lips, yet the voice sounded clearer than speech whispered into her ear. For a moment, Lan wondered whether her hearing had somehow become unnaturally sharp. Then she shook off the confusion. Whatever had happened, she still intended to conquer Wei. She leaned on the table, cupped her cheek, and aimed her largest, most watery gaze directly at him. Lan praised Wei's deeds in Shanghai and claimed his charm had captivated her. If this little woman ever needed help, would he stand up for her? Then came the real request. She wanted the two of them to open an entertainment company and build it into something glorious. Lan tightened the pressure. She wrapped both hands around Wei's arm and murmured that she had arrived too late for his past, but hoped to accompany him through his future. Wei felt her pressed against him and frowned instead of yielding. Wei reminded Lan that she had a fiancé who truly loved her and told her to collaborate with him instead. He had no interest. Inside, his reasoning was blunter. She was Yifan's fiancé. Standing up for her, or sharing her future, could send the entire plot collapsing. Lan's astonishment turned furious. Wei did not merely know about Yifan. He knew enough to classify her by that engagement while worrying about some hidden plot. How widely had Yi spread their private arrangement? Before she could recover the advantage, Wei left for his appointment with Luo Yu. Lan looked across the room and found guests already pointing and whispering. She had intended to unveil her partnership with Wei before everyone. Now there was nothing to unveil. Humiliation sharpened her resolve. She swore she would make Wei fall hopelessly in love, then deny him every chance and let him taste despair. Lan had lost all desire to continue the reception. Taking the microphone, she apologized to her friends and claimed she felt unwell. They could keep enjoying themselves and ask the butler for anything they needed. The guests were unconvinced. Moments ago, she had looked perfectly fine. Searching for a way out of the gossip, Lan fixed on Yifan. She announced that the true purpose of the gathering was to tell everyone she had a fiancé and named him. The room erupted. He rose in delight, waving with practiced grace, while Xiaobai hurried to secure him a microphone. Lan did not pause. Before you could say one romantic word, she continued. The engagement was void. From this moment onward, she had no relationship with Mr. Yi. His public elevation had lasted only seconds. The same audience that witnessed his joy now witnessed his rejection. Humiliation spilled onto the road. Xiaobai drove Yi's Mercedes at frightening speed after Wei's Lamborghini. In the passenger seat, Yi breathed like an enraged ox, hostility rolling off him. Xiaobai gripped the wheel with growing dread. If they failed to catch Wei, his boss might redirect those fists at him. Desperate to extinguish the fire, Xiaobai ventured that the best revenge was to live better than Wei. He demanded an explanation. Xiaobai argued that Wei had deliberately sown discord between him and Lan. If he raged on command, then Wei would be delighted to see his plan succeed. Xiaobai pressed the practical point. They were approaching downtown where traffic and witnesses made killing Wei in the street impossible. Catching him merely to glare would achieve nothing. When Yi finally asked what he suggested, Xiaobai delivered his answer, return the opponent's own methods upon him. Psychological warfare was paramount. Xiaobai completed his proposal. They should return Wei's own methods upon him. Instead of shouting about murder, Yi could make Wei lose control with a few carefully chosen words. He considered it, and then his eyes brightened. He finally knew exactly where to strike. He ordered Xiaobai to catch Wei before the traffic light changed, then doubled his salary on the spot. Xiaobai thanked him with genuine relief. His quick thinking had not only earned a raise, it had also removed the immediate danger of being used as Yi's punching bag. He lowered his window and greeted Wei with a mocking smile. Hadn't the beautiful Kawashima Mai died miserably? What a pity. He even offered false condolences, savoring every word. With a John and team hunting her, he believed her death had been almost certain. Now he waited for Wei to erupt. He did not rage. He asked whether prison had made the so-called Egg Emperor stupid. Mai was alive, lively, and diligently doing laundry, cooking, and mopping every day. He had no idea what Yi was talking about. In one calm answer, Yi's carefully prepared weapon turned back on him. He recovered only enough to roar that Wei was lying and demand proof. Wei answered with a single contemptuous verdict, idiot. Then he accelerated away instead of indulging him. Left with no control over the encounter, Yi immediately pulled out his phone and searched his contacts for Luo Yu. Elsewhere, Lan Qingcheng had returned to her villa. The living room was empty except for her. She had fried a plate of peanuts, opened a bottle of red wine, and settled alone at the dining table. The simple meal felt more leisurely than anything served at the reception, but her quiet mood concealed unfinished business. Click at the door shattered the silence. Lan's manager, Sister Hong, rushed inside beaming, a stack of freshly developed photographs in her hand. She dropped into the chair opposite Lan, slapped the stack onto the table, and declared that Lan had done brilliantly. Hong spread the images across the table one by one. Every angle strengthened the same illusion. In one, Wei ate slowly like the head of a household while Lan chatted beside him like a wife. Another showed them from behind, seated close together as though sharing a private, absorbing conversation. Then came the crucial photograph, Lan leaning intimately against Wei's arm. It was the strongest suggestion of a relationship, and Hong had obtained it without a photographer ever entering the reception. She had reviewed the villa area's surveillance footage and turned those unnoticed camera angles into precious scandal material. Hong, the value was immediate. Wei was the leader of Shanghai's 4 young masters, with a status ordinary playboys would never challenge. If news of Lan and Wei spread before he married, Lan could move freely through Shanghai. No wealthy nuisance in the entire magic city would dare harass her. That was what made Lan's result extraordinary. Countless female celebrities had tried to attract Wei and got nowhere. He showed no interest in entertainment industry women, and rumor claimed he deeply loved Mayu of Ankang Group. When Lan first invited him, even Sister Hong had assumed he would refuse to attend. Hong had stayed away from the reception because she did not want to watch Lan lose face. But the instant news arrived that Wei had actually appeared, she danced with joy and hurried to the surveillance room. She secured the footage at the first opportunity. Now the middle-aged manager celebrated as happily as a child. Lan watched Hong's delight and felt strangely detached. Before today, these photographs might have satisfied her completely. But she had heard Wei's hidden thoughts, and he had rejected her cooperation proposal. The scandal could still become a valuable one-off victory, yet the lasting connection she wanted had slipped away. It was not perfect. Hong noticed none of that private frustration. Still delighted, she leaned forward and asked what Lan had been thinking when she invited Wei. More importantly, why had she been so certain that a man famous for refusing women like her would agree? Lan held the question across the table, ready to reveal her calculation.